It is 6:15, and believe it or not, I'm actually getting us started right on time. My understanding is that BCTV, we are good to go.
We're good to go.
So in that case, I'm going to welcome everyone to this Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 Brattleboro Select Board meeting. John, was this meeting properly warned?
Yes, Ian, it was.
Excellent. Thank you very much. In that case, we're going to start the meeting by looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from last meeting.
Excellent. Peter has made a motion to approve the minutes from September 5th, 2023. Board members, any discussion? Franz?
Well, this is really trivial, but there was a misspelling.
Oh, no, that's fair.
Where at one point, there's a reference to counsel, meaning our attorney, but it was spelled C-O-U-N-C-I-L, which could then presumably be referring to some counsel, but it's not. It's counsel. So I would recommend that that be corrected.
Do you mind identifying the page number?
I don't mind, but it means I would have to find it.
It'll, well, actually, I don't know.
Towards the end.
Is that
We
sufficient?
can find it and.
Okay.
Control F. Yeah.
Okay, that's okay then, Franz. So any other further discussion, board? Okay, and looking to the public, don't see anyone. So in that case, all those in favor of approving the minutes of September 5th, 2023? Please say
Aye.
with that. Aye. It's going to carry 5-0. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is chair remarks. I don't have any remarks this evening. We probably have plenty of discussion to happen later. So I'll turn it over to John for manager's comments.
And I have no remarks tonight either.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we'll go to agenda item 5, which is the select board comments and committee reports. So I'll look to board members if anyone wishes to make a comment or committee report now.
I suppose I would like
Daniel.
to wish folks in the community a happy new year. Lashana Tova, it's a little late, but this was the next meeting after.
Great. Thank you very much, Daniel. Any other ones? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is public participation. So this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on an item. To speak on an item that's not on the warrant agenda, or to request that an item on the consent agenda be pulled and considered at the end of the regularly warned agenda, which the select board will consider next. So I see Dale's hand, and this will give me an opportunity to sort of speak to this now for the full meeting because I see some new faces. So when you come up to speak, the microphone doesn't project. It's only for picking up BCTV. So we ask that you go up and you speak there so that people online and on TV can hear you. When you come and speak, if you can just state your name, where you're from for the record, it makes it easier for the minutes in the future. And thank you, Dale, for your patience while I introduce this. And I'm asking that for select board meetings, I try to have people keep their comments to 3 minutes so that everyone who wants to speak has an opportunity to. And I try to recognize a person in the room and then a person on Zoom. We kind of go back and forth like that. And if you've already spoken once, I'm going to look to other people to speak before I recognize you again if there are other people. So with that.
Hi, my name is Dale Joy, and I'm from Brattleboro. And tonight I want to speak to a certain set of words: assault and battery. Assault refers to the wrong act of causing someone to reasonably fear imminent harm. This means that the fear must be something a reasonable person would foresee as threatening to them. Battery refers to the actual wrong act of physically harming someone. If you are charged with the crime of assault or battery, which there are crimes, this means there was the real presence of harm, be it forced or violent, or just threat of harm. A battery charge means there was actual physical contact and harm. Assault only implicates the threat of harm without the act of physically harming someone. It is the main difference between assault and battery. John Potter sent me a letter as to his inquiry as alleged inappropriate conduct and the assault to me by the police chief.
Okay, Dale, so we've talked
Okay.
about this multiple times.
No, we haven't talked. You've cut me off every
Yeah,
time.
and I'm about to do it again. So,
Okay.
So if you have anything else that you want to speak on tonight, you're more than welcome to, but we've already gone through this whole HR.
Oh,
issue.
really?
Yes, and
Sally can attest to it happening.
and Dale, I really
Bob
my
can
request
attest
is
to it happening. Why are you guys trying to hide this?
Not trying to hide anything. We've already. All right. Thank you very much. So, also gives us an opportunity to discuss. We have a lot of emotional issues to discuss this evening, so I'd really ask that we keep the conversation civil, respectful. Everyone here cares about the town of Brattleboro, and I just ask that we respect each other as we discuss these issues. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in public participation? I have one person in Zoom first that I'm going to recognize, and I see 3 other people. 4. Okay. Francesca?
Hi, I'm actually not Francesca.
Okay.
I'm Viv Woodland. Sorry, I was not able to change that here.
No worries.
I'm Viv Woodland. I work downtown and I live in West Brattleboro. And today was an exciting day because the new bike lanes were laid down on Western Avenue. And I was able to use them on my commute home. Knowing that investing in bicycle infrastructure is a positive move fiscally, bikes don't cause potholes, they're good for the environment and for public health. I want to share my gratitude to all who are working in Brattleboro to improve bicyclist safety and visibility. From the volunteers with the Brattleboro Coalition for Active Transportation to staff members in the planning department and the town road crew. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, I think I saw your hand up, sir, first.
Good evening. My name is Leland Wilson. I'm a resident of Brattleboro. I was recently appointed this past spring by the Select Board to be town representative to the Advisory Council for Senior Solutions. For those who are not aware, Senior Solutions is the business name for the Council on Aging for Southeastern Vermont. Its service area includes 45 towns, including all of Windham and Windsor counties. It provides a number of services, but the 2 most prominent functions are, 1, serving as the umbrella funding agency for the local Meals on Wheels programs, and 2, providing case management services for seniors who are looking to maintain independent lifestyle as they age. The Advisory Council provides input and advice from the community on these issues and reports to the Board of Directors for the organization. I wanted to remind everyone that the town of Brattleboro is actually entitled to 2 representatives on the Advisory Council, and the other position is currently vacant. So I wanted to encourage anyone who is interested in these issues affecting seniors to go online to the town website under committee appointments and submit your application if you're interested in being on the Advisory Council. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for your service and time that you give to the town of Brattleboro. Appreciate it. Okay, no hands on Zoom. Dick was next, and then I see Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dick DeGray, Brattleboro. First request is to take the EMS off of consent agenda. Actually, the monetary issue is what I'm concerned about there. Secondly, at the last meeting, I asked you to invite State's Attorney Tracy Shriver and our legislators to a meeting in October to talk about what is happening and not happening with laws with habitual offenders. I did speak with Ms. Shriver, and she's going to be more than happy to attend, so I hope you do extend that invitation. Last but not least, I don't know how many of you have been walking downtown since last Wednesday, but the overabundance of Post Oil stickers that have been plastered all over public and private property. My property, multiple properties downtown have been plastered. I have asked you for almost now 2 years to get cameras downtown. If somebody goes up, I know where all of you live, how would you like it if I went up and did to your property what's being done to mine? And I ask you for help, and you sit on your hands. It is really bothersome to me to have people's personal property desecrated by people who think their organization is the end-all, be-all, and they can put anything they want where they want it, and also on the poles, the lamp poles, anywhere downtown that's public property, which is all of our property. And I'm at my wit's end from coming here and asking you for help, and you have done absolutely squat. And I want to know why not. I pay a large amount of taxes as all those other building owners downtown, and if it was happening to your property, I'm betting something would be done. I can't wait until the police department wants to take money and put it in their budget that gets approved and then doesn't come online until July 1 and another 6 months to get cameras. It was 9 months before the cameras got in the transportation center. I don't want to wait 9 months. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of having all the property downtown graffitied, vandalized, and you do nothing. I'm waiting for you to respond and say, we're going to get on that. This EMS issue has sucked the energy and the life out of this town. And there's a lot of other things going on that have not been addressed by you. I would hope that you would have been able to multitask. And it is really, really frustrating to me as someone who cares deeply about this town, downtown, to see what I see on a daily basis and get no help. And it's not like I'm not asking for it. And you do nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I speak?
Very briefly.
No. Dick, I appreciate everything you're saying. I have also reached out to our legislators and our senators in the county to see if we can come together to address some of the issues that you are concerned about. I do walk downtown often, almost probably at least 4 or 5 times a week, if not every day. I do see some of the problems, and I corroborate what you're saying and understand what you're saying, but I do want you to know that these are the issues that I'm personally working on. I agree with you. The EMS thing has been pulling a lot of the bandwidth out, but I am personally working on just speaking on my behalf, and I'm with you, and I understand, and we should talk later.
Bob Ozer. And then I see your hand.
Bob Ozer, Brattleboro. I was going to say asked and answered, but it was asked but not answered. So the request is to remove the EMS update from the consent agenda, and particularly with respect to the questions concerning billing and collection that had been requested by the Selectboard. The answers, or some of the attempted answers to those questions, are in the EMS update. I did receive an informal response regarding that, but it might be good to put that on the record.
Great, thank you, Bob. And just to be clear, so when a member of the public requests an item be pulled from the consent agenda, that happens at the consent agenda item. So we'll move to the consent, when we discuss the consent agenda item, someone will, I would imagine, identify that item and request that it be pulled, and it's not a vote, it just gets pulled. So that doesn't really happen very often, so I appreciate the opportunity to sort of flex that procedural muscle. Seeing none other hands on Zoom, yes. And, oh, I'm sorry, and you may have, no, you're.
Hello, I'm Carol McManus of Brattleboro. First off, I want to recognize the work that Brattleboro Police Department continues to do. We've noticed in our area on Canal Street a slight shift. The neighbors are working hard at calling them out. I'm talking about drug dealers, addicts who are running amok. I also want to bring to your attention again And hopefully at some point, it'll be able to be on the agenda, or at least somebody will be able to let me know what we can do about sporties. Don't know the exact street address. It's on Canal Street. It's been a problem for a long time. My concern is related to those that are inside it and outside it. It's a place that breeds dangerous activity. It's also very concerned that parts of it may fall down on top of someone. Believe it or not, I do care about the people in there. This is a safety issue all the way around. Somebody lights a fire, bing, gone. So I really think this needs to be addressed. I don't know why the building is still standing. So anybody know that answer? They could answer that question off the top of the head. That would be helpful.
Yeah, I don't know the answer now. We can look into that. I think I imagine that's private property, and so.
No. Well, yeah, but I need a better answer than that.
I understand.
I did the research.
I understand.
And I know that Barbara doesn't own it anymore, someone else, and I
Okay.
heard rumors. But, and I understand EMS, we have lots of big issues going on, but that's one of them. Because it's not the only place, but that's the main place right now. I'm going to bring your attention back to years ago, not too far in the past. We had behind the train station, all that property there that housed homeless people.
Behind the.
It took on the other side, headed towards Hinsdale.
Oh.
You were, I think maybe before you, I don't know. But it was there for a long time, and it took quite a while, and a lot of people were torn about the fact that it was being torn down. But the problem is that it's a danger. So this is another situation. We have people that are in there, and you're not going to keep them out by boarding it up. And, yeah, so that's my concern. Thank you for hearing that, and hopefully we can address it.
Great. Thank you, Carol.
Good evening, Pierre Landry, Brattleboro.
Welcome.
First of all, I'd like to thank Patrick Moreland and all those who worked, in behind the scenes to help provide all this exhaustive materials and information through this EMS project. I also like to give a shout out to Rich Buchanan of AP Triton in their assessments. My comment tonight is regarding September 12th, the public forum.
So very happy to hear this, but let's do it at the agenda item. We're just in public comment, which is on not items that are warned. So we'll just hear that when we get to, unless I don't know what you're going to say, so maybe it sounds like.
It's basically about what took place at the public forum, not anything to do with the decision-making of EMS.
Sure, yeah, let's hear it.
So-
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So my comment on the forum, and then I have a question at the end. I was really encouraged by the number of town residents who turned out Thursday night, and also to their level of following the EMS study and the knowledge of the information delivered. What bothered me, though, was a decision was made to limit the time for concerned residents to express their views on this important topic. Instead, we had to listen to town department heads read scripted presentations, pushing talking points from previous select board meetings. Furthermore, all but maybe 3 don't even live in Brattleboro. So the EMS decision has little to no impact on them. I also don't feel it was appropriate that non-town residents were allowed to voice their opinions from the floor. The town manager should have stepped in and stopped this. At the September 7th Select Board meeting, one of the board members accused Rescue Inc. of some serious unprofessional behaviors which could not be discussed at the board meeting. And then there was talked about the letter that the town received from Rescue. So it was great to see that at that Thursday night meeting, the public forum, that HR Director Nix sort of clarified some of these incidences. So she went on to talk about December 23rd, 2020, there was a complaint filed by Rescue Inc. against Brat Fire for gender discrimination, poor patient turnover, verbal abuse, and lack of cooperation. Understandably, it was investigated, and in April 2021, the claims were unfounded. Shortly after this investigation in April, new form was, I'm assuming, jointly developed by both Rescue and Brat Fire to be used by both parties to file complaints. From May 21 to May 22, there were only 3 complaints. So I don't know, where all this unprofessional behavior that was spoken on the select board meeting on September 7th is coming from. I also want to state that the letter was discussed at the town forum that the town received from Rescue Inc. It was read, and it clearly stated that Rescue Inc. could not provide EMS services to Brattleboro for free. It was also, in the letter, was suggested for additional meeting dates to discuss the new contract. The town
I'm just going to ask you to
did not,
your comment.
I'm wrapping up.
Thanks.
The town did not contact Rescue Inc. to schedule any of these meetings. Also, at that select board meeting on September 7th, another board member was encouraging for more public comment. So this leads to my question for all the board members, and I hope each one of you answer. From all the emails sent to the town's EMS comment page, and from those town residents that attended the public forum, what did the board hear from the town residents? What were they saying? Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So that really gets into the agenda item tonight. So we're going to just move on to that unless there's anybody else who wants to speak on something that's not on the warrant agenda. Don't see any hands in the room, and I don't see any hands on Zoom. So we're going to move on to agenda item 7, which is the consent agenda. John, are you prepared to give us a brief?
Yep.
Great.
We have 7 items on consent tonight. If the board approves the consent agenda, it will be approving a bid award in the amount of $49,904.05 to J. King Electric for converting 6 town buildings to LED lighting. It will be approving the serving of alcohol by the Brattleboro Food Co-op for their catering operation. It will be approving a bingo fundraising event on October 6th at Winston Prouty. It will be awarding a contract in the amount of $51,108.48 to Avenu Insights and Analytics to digitize Brattleboro's land records back to the early 1800s and placing them online. It will be approving a parade permit for the town's Halloween parade on October 31st and for the Prayerful procession held by St. Michael's Church on September 24th. And finally, it will be accepting the August EMS update from Assistant Fire Chief Keir.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sean. Board members, anyone wish to pull an item from the agenda? Franz.
Well, I'm certainly willing to pull the EMS item, the update from the agenda, but I would point out that moves it to the very end of our agenda today. And in fact, it's my understanding that the remarks that people might want to make would be considered germane under the bigger discussion of EMS that we'll get to after we do the consent agenda. So pulling that item effectively delays the discussion rather than makes it more accessible. And I'm not sure how to deal with this situation. I'm more than willing to have the item pulled, but I don't think it accomplishes what people really want.
Yeah, I think let's pull it.
Okay.
Great. We don't take public comment on consent agenda. But point of order.
Point of order is germane.
Yeah.
You have the right to move the item up in the agenda if the board so chooses to do so.
Yeah. I don't want to do that because I think we have everyone here to discuss the big item tonight. And I think the other way to address it is I'm happy. I think that if there's things that are in the EMS update that you think are pertinent to the discussion for agenda item A that's warned, I will be happy to hear that as germane to the discussion on the EMS item. And then if there's further discussion on the update afterward, we can discuss it after the agenda item A. And unless it's a point of order, I'm not going to take public comment on so I'm looking to Bob if it's a point of order or not.
Bob Ozer, Brattleboro. I don't know if this is a point of order or not. I was just going to read something to you. This is from John Potter, the town manager.
So if it's not a point of order, I'm not going to take public comment right now. So
Well, then it is a point of order, because I did ask this question via email, and I got an answer via email, which seems to be different than the answer that's on the record. So I guess the point of order is, what's the orderliness to the proceeding?
why don't you just ask to have that clarified during the next agenda item? Does that work for you?
Well, that's actually what this says.
Okay. So
Most, if not all, the information in the update could be discussed under item 8A1, and the assistant fire chief will be available at that time.
yeah.
But if a board member wants to discuss it instead after the Fire-EMS transition discussion has occurred, it is their prerogative to pull it from consent. So I guess you can make that decision according to what I've been told. So I don't know if that's a point of order, but maybe a point of
I think you
how the agenda
basically-
gets developed.
I think you've just reiterated what I was saying. So I'm happy to hear, we're happy to hear everything that you want to talk about with the EMS update, because it's going to be germane to this discussion, and we can also pull it and have additional discussion at the end. So up to you, Franz, if you'd like to pull it.
What my thinking is that it would make somewhat of a difference in how the discussion proceeds if we pulled it from consent and then moved it up to be the next item that we discuss, as sort of a preparatory item for the EMS, the full EMS discussion. So I don't think, I'm not sure what your objection is to doing that. I didn't realize we could move it up.
It would have to be
in
a agreement of the full board, or a
Right, it'd have to be a vote of the board
Yeah.
to change the agenda.
My feeling is the information that's pertinent or questions that people have about the EMS update, as the town manager indicated in that email, is going to be relevant to the discussion, and we can answer questions, and we'll have AC Kier available who drafted the memo, and that way we can move forward with this, full public here who wants to speak on it.
Right, but when will that happen in the next agenda item? Will that happen at the beginning of the next agenda item
When we hear from the public?
so it would be
During-
well into the discussion,
Correct.
perhaps, rather than at the beginning. So I would move that I would request that we remove it from the consent agenda, and I'm then prepared to make a motion to move it up in the agenda to be the next item for discussion.
Okay, so to pull it from the consent doesn't require a motion.
Right.
But, so you making the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I move that the item that was just taken off the consent agenda be moved up in our agenda to be the next item for discussion after the consent agenda.
Great. Okay, Franz made a motion to move EMS update before the Fire-EMS transition discussion and decision. Further discussion, Daniel.
Tell me if I'm wrong here, but can I understand what in the EMS update you think needs to be talked about before everything else so that I can make my decision?
Franz?
I don't know. It depends on what people want to talk about. My concern is that if this hadn't been on consent, it probably would have come before the
Yes.
full EMS discussion. So what I'm trying to do is restore it to the place it would have been if it hadn't been on consent.
Fine.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, Franz made a motion to move what is currently agenda item G in the consent agenda to the new business consent item A above the Fire-EMS transition. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. So it's going to fail 2-3. Okay. So that is now pulled and will be new business agenda item 8B. But again, happy to hear questions about it during the discussion on agenda item A. Okay. So with that, only other thing is, so it's very warm in here up front, and it may be warm back there. I don't really know. The problem is the AC is very loud, and it is very loud in the back room. So we're going to kind of go back and forth from turning it on to turning it off so that people can hear, but then also we're not too warm and sending people away because they're, too hot. So I apologize for that back and forth, but we'll hopefully. And with that, do you mind turning on the AC? Thank you very much. Okay. Actually, he's turning. I know, because think about this.
And maybe Ian, the board could make an extra effort to speak nice and loud?
Yeah, actually, and so for the board should speak nice and loud as it gets loud in there. And I'll also just really encourage members of the public, to speak really loud, because again, the microphones don't amplify your voice at all. They're just for BCTV. So this is just there it is. Great. Thank you very much, Patrick. Okay. So we're going to move on to new business agenda item 8, singular I, which is the Fire-EMS transition discussion and decision EMS service delivery model. So just to give kind of a brief breakdown of how we're going to do this discussion tonight, there are 3 items in this agenda item, sub-items in this agenda item, and we're going to tackle them one at a time. We will hear from staff first on the memorandum that was prepared. Then we will have a motion from the select board, which grounds the discussion. And then we will have, we'll hear discussion from the select board, then we'll hear from the public, then we'll probably hear more from the select board, and then we'll have motions, we'll have votes made on those motions. So we'll do those one at a time through. It'll take a while, and we'll try to hear from everybody if we can, and I'll try to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just backing up, did you move the consent agenda?
Oh my gosh, no. Yeah.
Just before we get
Thank you very
far
much.
ahead.
Obviously, I have something on the mind to get to.
Absolutely.
So in that case, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Yeah, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
So Franz made a motion to approve the
As
consent
amended.
agenda as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's going to carry 5-0. Thank you very much, Bob. That's why we have you here. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the new business agenda item A. So just to set us up, on March 21st of 2023, the select board approved a schedule for the town to consider multiple models for the future of EMS in Brattleboro. That model would either be a municipal model or a third-party model. The goal was for the select board to decide on a preferred model by September. And absent a couple of hiccups, we have managed to maintain that schedule. Over the last 6 months, the board and the public have undertaken with town staff, utilizing one meeting per month at least, to discuss the progress of each of those models. That has included reviewing estimated revenues, operational costs, and startup costs for the proposed municipal model. And it's also included drafting, reviewing, issuing an RFI and an RFP for the third-party model, and then also reviewing the responses to both the RFI and the RFP. Then, finally, we have analyzed those responses and the municipal model, assessing both and creating comparative documents so that we can best understand them contrasted with each other. And now we are at the final step of this process, which is an opportunity for the board to make a decision. As we're all aware, the town has a recommendation on a preferred model based on their full review of all the available information. And I'm going to pass it over to John now to give a presentation on that information that's found in the memorandum that was prepared for the select board.
Some of you know that I served as a volunteer EMT for 6 years in the 1990s. It was a different time then for EMS than it is now, but gives me a firsthand perspective and compels me to express gratitude for all of the rescue, Golden Cross, AMR, and Brattleboro Fire Department EMTs and paramedics. I know they will see things during their years of service that will stick with them for the rest of their lives. I know the level of training and certification and practice that goes into being a good EMT. And I know the type of dedicated, caring people who choose to be EMTs and medics and serve the public in that way. So we will all have these intense discussions tonight, but bottom line, I think we share a collective thank you to all of these people. Ian, as you mentioned, 6 months ago, on March 21st of this year, the Select Board directed the administration to pursue parallel tracks of investigation to develop a preferred alternative EMS service delivery model by September. And here we are at September 19th, which a decision tonight at this meeting will allow the town to incorporate the financial impact of this decision into the draft FY25 general fund budget. And it'll also give providers enough time to get ready and go live when the Golden Cross contract runs out in July 2024. Through the spring and summer this year, staff's analysis was directed primarily at the municipal EMS model and at the formulation of a request for information and a request for proposals for contracted services, each of which was reviewed in public prior to release. During this time, there were 8 major opportunities for public input on these topics, and good feedback came in and was acted on by staff, including modifications to the RFI and the RFP, inviting municipal EMS providers from other communities to join us, and doing a 5-year financial analysis of the options. A project website was set up and a project email, and I think this has been a town project with more engagement and opportunities for engagement than any we've seen in some time, if ever. Private contractors submitted 2 responses to the town's RFP. A dedicated, fully contracted model was proposed by American Medical Response, AMR, of Massachusetts, and a shared hybrid approach was submitted by Rescue Inc. of Brattleboro. The proposal from AMR proposes a comprehensive turnkey EMS solution, providing all staff, vehicles, equipment, and supplies to provide 24/7 emergency ambulance transport services. The proposal would cost the town $1.66 million in FY25, and the fee would increase by 4% in each of the next 4 years of the 5-year contract. All direct patient payments and insurance reimbursement revenue would be passed back on to Brattleboro. The chosen scope under this AMR proposal was a single ambulance staffed 24/7 with a paramedic and an EMT. And they offered additional assets at an unspecified additional cost. Today, the town has a very clear picture of the response needs of the community. And in approximately 84% of calls, a single ambulance is needed. However, the town now knows that in approximately 16% of the time, there are 2 active calls occurring simultaneously. And just under 2% of the time, a third simultaneous active call could be expected in Brattleboro. Because of this, the town's current operational standard is 3 ambulances available at any time. The AMR proposal provides a single ambulance, leaving a significant number of emergency response calls to unidentified mutual aid responders. We don't know who. So for this reason, staff recommend that the proposal from AMR does not warrant further consideration at this time. The second private contracted model proposed was a shared hybrid model by Rescue Inc. of Brattleboro. This type of proposal relies on ambulances and emergency response staff that are shared across a service area that is larger than the town of Brattleboro, covers 16 towns and hundreds of square miles. It also relies in some way on municipal personnel to serve as first responders. Prior to July 1st of last year, the town of Brattleboro and Rescue Inc. had a long history of hybrid service delivery. Brattleboro fire personnel served as first responders to all Priority 1 calls, while Rescue Inc. staff responded to emergent Priority 1 calls and less urgent Priority 2 calls. This assured that EMS could respond quickly in your town. If the assets of rescue were already engaged in service elsewhere, somewhere else in the region, the town could be assured that trained personnel from the fire department were responding to that urgent need. All EMS was coordinated and dispatched to the scene by Brattleboro Central Dispatch. This past approach, however, does not describe the shared hybrid proposal submitted to the town by Rescue Inc. in August of 2023. Rescue Inc. proposed to engage the services of Southwestern New Hampshire Mutual Aid for dispatch. Thereby, Rescue Inc. would operate the EMS system for the town without additional assistance from municipal services to the extent possible. Historically, Brattleboro Central Dispatch would tone out between 1,000 and 1,300 Priority 1 calls per year. Rescue Inc.'s expectation that Brattleboro Fire would be responding to less than 100 calls per year is a very different arrangement and one that raised serious concerns for town staff. The concerns were regarding timely response to emergency calls, the implied reduction of well-trained EMTs and paramedics at Brattleboro Fire Department, and the duplication of dispatching services when taxpayers already fully fund a dispatch service at the Brattleboro Police Department. The cost to the town for this proposal from Rescue Inc. is straightforward. Beginning in FY25, the town would pay Rescue $454,000 at $422, and that cost would increase 5% each year of the remaining 5-year contract. The cost to the taxpayers over the term of this 5-year contract would be a total of $2.5 million. The Rescue Inc. proposal has some obvious drawbacks, including the proposed diminished role for Brattleboro fire personnel in first response, as well as the added cost of using an outside dispatching service. If the Select Board favored a shared hybrid approach, but wanted to consider a different proposal, a second RFP process is recommended by the town attorney. While there is enough time to conduct a second RFP prior to the end of the contract with Golden Cross, the delay to explore this approach would detrimentally impact the potential backup implementation of a municipal EMS program, both for hiring and for acquiring ambulances. So staff suggests that such a course of action should only be entertained if the municipal alternative has already been ruled out. But alternatively, for the staff recommendation, and after fully considering the proposals received from AMR and Rescue Inc., staff are ready to make a recommendation to the Select Board. In staff's combined judgment, the best EMS approach for Brattleboro is the municipal model. This recommendation was by no means a foregone conclusion and is being presented in full acknowledgement that for some in our community, this will be a deep disappointment. Staff recommend the municipal option as the preferred EMS alternative for several reasons: quality patient care, sound finances, a unified approach to public safety, and the importance of public oversight. Number one, quality patient care is obvious. Over the past 14 months, Brattleboro Fire, together with Golden Cross, has responded effectively to all EMS calls for service and have done so under the required medical supervision of the State of Vermont's EMS District 13 Medical Director. This process ensures that medical calls are reviewed independently by a trained physician and that an ongoing dialogue between EMS providers and their medical director evaluates issues of quality control and makes recommendations for quality improvement. This necessary and essential condition has been satisfied and will continue to be satisfied under the municipal model. Additionally, I believe the reduced complexity of the EMS system under a municipal model will also improve patient care. Number two, the financial outlook of each of these options has been reviewed many times in public already. While there is some uncertainty with the details of the municipal model, much of that uncertainty is really a reflection of the actual control that a municipal model offers to issues like billing rates and collection practices. These are decisions that will impact the finances of the municipal model. But these are also squarely under the control of the people's elected representatives, the Select Board. The shared hybrid model offered by Rescue Inc., however, does not allow the town any say in the billing rates charged for ambulance services. With the municipal model, the Select Board and the public can feel good knowing that that model works favorably for the general fund, even when with a low revenue estimate based on Golden Cross collections over the past year. In fact, skipping to the 5-year cost analysis in Table 1 of the Select Board's backup materials, I would like to focus on that low revenue estimate, which is the upper part of this table. We looked out over the full 5 years of the proposed rescue contract and did a conservative worst-case look at how the municipal model holds up. And we find that with the low-end estimate of $4.4 million in reimbursement revenues, the municipal model outperforms the proposed rescue contract by $1.2 million. That nearly pays back the entire proposed ARPA startup cost in 5 years. This is a tremendous return on investment next to the town's best alternative with Rescue Inc. Number three, the town has acknowledged in its hazard mitigation plan the recognition that there is an increasing frequency of both extreme rainfall events with flooding and winter snow and ice storms. As climate change continues, heat stress will become a more significant risk in the lives of our residents, as will wildland fire. EMS activity and disaster medical assistance will be an increasing community need. The town must be planning for public health preparedness and response as an adaptation to climate change, and the administration's recommendation underlines that a fully integrated municipal EMS system is best poised to ensure that the town has the staff and the equipment capacity needed to serve this community at really difficult times. Staff contend that that Brattleboro deserves the right to determine its best level of preparedness and not to have its needs balanced against the overall needs of a larger region. In fact, a strong system of reduced complexity operating in Brattleboro can in turn be ready to help our neighboring communities even better. Finally, the fourth point, this right of self-determination is closely related to another fundamental benefit of the municipal model, and that's public oversight. Brattleboro delivers essential services, and it does so in a manner that the public has come to expect. And it has come to expect that being done with transparency and accountability. And the fair consideration that can be found in a select board meeting is simply not present at the deliberations of a privately held corporation, whether it's for-profit or whether it's for not-for-profit. Select board meetings are open to you all, and town finances are publicly reviewed regularly, and they're open to examination at any time. When policy is to be set, the voice of every Brattleboro resident can be heard with a municipal EMS model, which is not the case with the Rescue Inc. proposal. I realize that a great number of people like rescue. I like rescue, and I want to see rescue be successful, and I want to see them succeed in the larger region. What I don't like is the rescue proposal and how it compares to the municipal approach. Please understand that this recommendation is not about the past. It is entirely focused on the future. Staff wholeheartedly recommends the municipal model as the preferred alternative. While it is significant that the municipal model is the least cost approach, the town really needs a universal, integrated, all-hazards emergency response system in Brattleboro to help withstand the challenges of the years ahead. This investment in town resilience is the difficult but responsible decision.
Thank you very much, John, for that presentation on the town's recommendation for the preferred model. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the Select Board for their initial comments or questions, and then we will hear from the public. So, Select Board?
Do you want a motion first?
Oh, yeah, thank you. And I will take a motion to begin the...
Okay. I move for the Select Board to select the fully municipal approach as the preferred model for EMS service delivery in Brattleboro, effective in FY25 on July 1st, 2024.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much, Liz, and I appreciate the reminder. So in that case, now, Board, does anyone wish to speak on the motion first? Liz.
Good evening. We have had 14 months of providing, Brattleboro Fire Department providing service together with Golden Cross in order to see if Brattleboro could assume the sole responsibility as municipal fire EMS. Every month, we charted their activity, perfecting the model, how many ambulances, how's the medical oversight going, and Brattleboro Fire Department is ready, willing, and very able. Additional staff is not a concern. We provide good jobs for fire EMS, and we already have a waiting list of prospective new hires. Morale is not a problem. The union is behind this action. Ambulances can be readily obtained, as Chief Howard and Patrick Moreland have presented. Saving lives is all of our number one concern, the safety of the public. The competency of our EMS firefighter technicians is key and is governed by the very same standards of all state EMS professionals. The fire department is not too busy to assume this added responsibility. Only 8% of the calls to the fire department are fire-related. This 8% also speaks to the efficiency of cross-training Fire-EMS personnel. Also, the Brattleboro Fire Department response times are favorable. And the Brattleboro Memorial Hospital nurse, Taylor Emery, has stated publicly that the Brattleboro Fire Department is doing the job now and doing it well. For the taxes, Brattleboro can add the transportation and billing to our existing paid fire and EMS department with modest fiscal expense. Why? Because we will be keeping the insurance fees from the ambulance service. Thus, the revenues will pay for the majority of any additional staff and expenses. As for ARPA spending, adding this valuable EMS service to our existing municipal services is a valid and valuable use of ARPA funds. This action will improve town government services. It is an investment in Brattleboro's future. This ARPA money will also be preparing our town for climate change as a direct investment in resiliency. The idea of having a town-wide emergency response service for the future of climate change for resiliency is something that deeply resonated with me in terms of what climate change may bring to our town. What we've seen this year in Vermont, and we were lucky to have been mostly spared, and what happened years ago during Tropical Storm Irene, caused our town to constantly ask ourselves how to prepare for emergencies and how to work together and how to become resilient to respond to whatever the need might be, whether it's flooding or fire or heat changes. We would now have the wherewithal to provide a full, unified municipal emergency care. The bottom line, this comprehensive emergency team is an exciting opportunity. This is the best thing for Brattleboro now and for Brattleboro in the future. To have under the town's control a full, unified public safety and emergency response is a good thing for all future emergencies, not just fire and EMS. We know climate change is real, and we have worked for years to improve the town's resiliency. This would be a huge win for Brattleboro and a great opportunity to improve our town's capabilities. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Liz. Other select board members wish to speak? Franz?
Sure, why not?
And how are we doing in the back?
We could turn the air conditioning off at this
Patrick
point. I
is.
think.
Patrick's not turning it off? Yeah, this is the thing. We'll go back and forth, and then it'll get really hot again. Yeah, so, but you guys can hear us in the back and can hear us in the back. Great. Yeah, Franz.
Thank you, Ian. So, in case people haven't noticed, I think the topic we're discussing tonight is important and serious. And I've been taking it seriously for the past 6 months on the board and before that as well. I've devoted many hours to understanding the information and the opinions available from many sources, both public and private. I have listened and I have paid attention. I will add that the same is true of my fellow board members. This has been a serious undertaking for all of us. What I'd like to say next is that things didn't have to go exactly the way they did, with disruption and confusion and ill feeling. There were opportunities for a more stable, open, and cordial process, but these opportunities were not taken. I wish they had been, but they were not. A year ago, I was coming to select board meetings saying we should learn the lessons from this experience, and as a town, I think we have. We need to be more thoughtful and less reactive. We need to be more open and less judgmental. We need to be honest with ourselves and with each other about what we know and what we don't know. We need to know when to accept responsibility for things that didn't go well or according to plan. But all these things are in the background tonight because we're here to make a decision about the future. As important as it is to review past events in pursuit of improvement, the job right now is to look ahead and make good decisions about what comes next. I come here tonight having reached my position only in the past week. For a variety of reasons, many of which have been articulated by a large number of people, I was looking for a way for the town to move back into a partnership with a provider outside of the municipal government. I was open to the alternative of a turnkey operation such as the proposal from American Medical Response. And their proposal had some attractive features, but in the end, I decided that the town should remain involved in the provision of EMS to the people of Brattleboro. It's too important a municipal function for us to park ourselves on the sidelines. Similarly, and for other reasons, the proposal from Rescue Incorporated demanded the utmost attention and consideration. As many have said, Rescue is a known quantity and one of the premier providers of emergency medical services in the state of Vermont. Their excellence is recognized throughout the state, and they deserve credit for everything they have achieved. Excellence, however, is not a zero-sum game, and its presence in one place does not preclude its presence somewhere else. The protocols for EMS providers at every level are determined by the system and the medical supervision by which and under which those providers practice. There's no reason others cannot provide emergency care at the same level as Rescue Inc. In fact, the first response provided by the Brattleboro Fire Department EMTs has been an integral part of the excellent EMS in our town for many years. For me, the crux of this decision comes down to the working relationship between the Brattleboro Fire Department and Rescue Incorporated, which deteriorated over a number of years. What I have found is that a basis for repairing this relationship is simply absent at the present time. No amount of finger-pointing back and forth can obscure the fact that finger-pointing, accusation, and innuendo are not the basis for a productive, collegial working relationship. Mediation has its place in a business relationship, which is what this is. The town of Brattleboro is a customer. Rescue Inc. is a service provider. But mediation is not going to bear fruit if the two sides are not operating from a point of mutual respect. Mutual respect is not present in this relationship at this time. The town of Brattleboro has an alternative, a viable alternative that can deliver excellent emergency care. That alternative is to build an excellent, dedicated emergency medical services system within town government. The administration, led by Town Manager John Potter, Assistant Town Manager Patrick Moreland, and Finance Director Kim Frost, has put together financial projections that show a viable path forward, one that, even with significant startup costs, is projected to be less expensive than the proposal from Rescue Incorporated over the next 5-year contract period. Let me say it again, less expensive than Rescue Incorporated's proposal over the next 5 years. Are these results guaranteed? No, they are not. Both operationally and financially, we must task ourselves to make these things a reality. We will gratefully accept help from whoever wishes us well and can propel us forward. We need the participation and the energy of the people of Brattleboro to reach our goal. Based on these considerations, I will cast my vote in favor of a municipally based EMS system within the Brattleboro Fire Department. I know that many of you will think this decision a mistake, but I hope you'll come to a place of wishing this venture well, supporting the town as we move forward, continuing to participate in this important discussion, and all the other important discussions on the issues facing Brattleboro. In closing, I thank everyone who has been a part of this process, and I look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Franz. Other board members wish to speak? Peter?
What has unfolded over the last 6 months that I've presided on this board has been nothing more than a narrative snatching event with regards to this issue. From statewide articles that should have been placed on an op-ed page to the parsing of words of credible people who were to weigh into a fight that wasn't theirs. A few have accused me, this board, of dividing this town, to which I say, nothing can divide this town. I've been here at its lowest points. I've been here at its highest points. We are better than that. We can disagree. We can find a path forward. I've watched this community band together on big and small issues, and I know we can do it again. But on this particular issue, I do have a unique perspective. On February 9th, 2022, I had a cup of coffee with then our new town manager, Yoshi Manali. This is the first time I would have a chance to sit down and talk with him. And as he sat and talked, I could tell he was agitated and very unsettled. I suggested that we should reschedule. He said, no, I'm just going to tell you what happened. It's all going to get aired anyway. He had just come from a meeting with Rescue. He was visibly confused by the interaction and the responses to questions he felt were simple questions to answer. Without going into great detail, he gave me a lesson on how EMS services were provided to a municipality, and I have to say, at the moment of his assessment, I agreed with him, but warned that if he picked a fight with Rescue, he would likely die on that hill. Fast forward a few weeks, somebody did him a favor of leaving a box of fecal matter at his door, and he was gone. Not Brattleboro's proudest moment. At that time, I had no idea I would be sitting here on the select board deciding about it again. I will tell you that in March, it was much clearer than it is now. Much has come to light in recent weeks. As my colleague just said, I was really kind of on the fence with this whole issue. I did some independent work, independent of this board, to bring me to my own conclusion. Going into those details would serve no one at this point. So here's my promise to the citizens of Brattleboro. When you wake up tomorrow morning and God forbid you have to dial 911, here's what I guarantee you. 1, someone will show up with the clinical acuity that could save a life. 2, they will get there quickly. 3, they will give your loved ones the care and need they deserve. 4, within that moment, you will not care how much it costs the people of Brattleboro. 5, you will not care what the side of the box says when they show up. Here's another thing I know and understand. Some of you will be mad for a few weeks because of this vote. But once it's done, it's done. You've elected this body to make decisions, and you always have the next election if you don't like the decision that's made here tonight. The work I do, this board does on behalf of this town, a town that we all love, I might add. Once this is put to rest, I will wake up tomorrow and continue to address the downtown issues in a manner that is fair and equitable and work to remove the narrative that has been placed upon it. Brattleboro, will you fight alongside me for that work? This is the work I want to do. As I sit here, I don't like the alienation that this vote will cause. I resent the prior knowledge of previous town managers had around this issue and failed to act. I don't like that I must sit here and pick and choose between people I can share a line with at a grocery store. But as I often get reminded, I signed up for it. So tonight, we decide. And tomorrow, I will wake up and never discuss it again. I will get on to the work that affects our town, and this town, you will have EMS service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Daniel, you want to speak?
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, I wanted to thank the town staff for what I thought was a really clear and well-articulated memo that if you hadn't been paying attention to this issue, you could have picked up that memo and got a really great summary of what has happened and, you know, why the town staff was recommending what they recommended. So I want to thank them for that. I want to thank my fellow select board members. It was pretty interesting hearing what you all had to say. I had no clue, honestly, what was going to come out of your mouths. And I think it's kind of interesting recently where members of the public have said, sometimes to my face, we already know what you think, which is fascinating to me because last Tuesday I had lunch with John, as I do every Tuesday, and told him that what I was really trying to figure out was like, it seemed to me like the people of the town were saying they really wanted to have a contract with Rescue Inc. I heard that very clearly. I hear it clearly from many of the people in this room. And what I was wrestling with was like, based on the proposal that I've received and based on the other options that I have in front of me, how could I do that? And I wrestled with it, so I wrestled with it until even yesterday, I would say, like gone back and forth on this issue. So that you have some sort of window into my brain, I don't know how you managed to do that. Congratulations. Today, I think I have heard clearly from many different folks in the community that both the fire department and Rescue Inc. are well-liked and well-respected. I've heard that loud and clear. And I expect that to continue to be the case. When we had the public forum on Tuesday, I was really happy to meet frontline staff from both organizations and shake their hand and thank them for their service. Because as John said at the beginning, what they do every day, what they see every day, we should be thankful that those folks are in our community. So I know that both organizations are well-liked. That's to their credit. Rescue Inc. is an experienced ambulance transport organization. That's a fact. As an organization, they've been around for a good long time. Fire department has been around for a good long time as well, but ambulance transport is a new thing for us in the last year and a bit. Other things that I thought about was the accountability. There is more accountability to taxpayers. I'm presuming everyone in this room, who's a resident is a taxpayer here. That is only really possible with the municipal option. It is a more efficient use of our fire department. I spent 5 hours with Platoon 2 on Sunday, and I've never spent that much time in a firehouse observing the work. I think the last time I spent more than 30 minutes there was the Christmas breakfast a couple of years back pre-pandemic. That was a good breakfast. But if you are aware of the kind of data that the fire department puts out as to what they're up to, which you can find in the EMS update, there's a nice little pie chart for you to look at, you'll know that thankfully, mostly we don't have a lot of fires. Mostly we have done great fire prevention work. There's good systems in place in the community. And so it's not like the fire department is running off every 5 minutes to a fire. They are well placed to take on the work of ambulance response and transport. The partnership with Golden Cross has already kind of proven to us that we learned that we definitely need a few more staff, and we certainly couldn't do this on our own without having additional assets. But we learned that the department can take on that work and can do it well. So that is to their credit. Another thing in the pro column for me is policy setting. So for those of you who've been paying attention, you'll know that our revenue model for the municipal option was based on a rate of $1,400 per call, which would be for either an ALS call or a BLS call, which seems to me extremely high as somebody that may well one day need that ambulance service and somebody that has a high deductible health plan. $1,400 is too much for me to imagine wanting to pay for that service that I would have really very little choice in. And so I worked with our revenue model and plugged in various different numbers. I haven't been using the high revenue estimate as my way to understand whether this is financially viable. So I've been working with numbers sometimes around about like $1,000 for an ALS call, $700 for a BLS call. I guess this is probably not a little too weedy for all of you, but I want you to understand that the revenue model that Patrick diligently put together, which is based on real data that we've collected over the last 14 months or so, can work with a few different rates. And I plugged in the rates that Rescue submitted alongside their RFP, and it comes out with a total revenue of $844,477. That's based on 2,043 transports and based on the payer mix that we've been using in that model. So what I want to say is that this body will get the opportunity to set a rate that's appropriate for the taxpayer, but also, and for me, most importantly, appropriate for the person that will need the ambulance care. And I love having that opportunity to intervene in what I see as a medical system in this country that is very inequitable. And so it is wonderful to at least have one thing I can do to make it a little bit better for people. We will also set policy around collections. And I think it has not been said clearly enough in this room that the revenue model that we've been using for things like Medicare and Medicaid assumes that once we have the reimbursement money from the government, that no further collections would be happening, right? So this model works without chasing people who are on Medicare and Medicaid down for every other penny past what the government will reimburse. So that is comforting to me. It is also worth noting that revenue changes to Medicare and Medicaid are likely coming, and they will likely go up. So when they go up, those increases will accrue to Brattleboro if Brattleboro is the one that is billing. And then the thing that I learned, the thing that I knew intellectually but didn't really know with my eyes, was that when you have all the services under one roof, there is a level of teamwork that I think is really beneficial to patient care. We've talked a little bit about like challenges around like handoff between two agencies in the past. And when you have a scene that is under the command of one organization with a clear chain of command, respect for the leadership of that, that team that's working there, that's going to be beneficial for patient care. One of the calls that we went to on Sunday was an odor investigation at Walgreens. Turned out to be nothing. I guess what it could have been is something quite serious and the whole place could have exploded. I don't know. I'm not a firefighter. But what I did see was I went along in an engine with 3 fire department staff. An ambulance went along that was staffed by a paramedic and a fire department member whose level I think was AEMT maybe. And the ladder truck showed up from Station 2. And these 3 vehicles and teams on them worked really well together. There was a calm atmosphere. I was probably the most stressed person there. And I think that if you kind of extrapolate that to an ambulance call where everybody works for the same organization, has the same goal in mind, that is bound to be beneficial to patient care over the long run. I think that there are some downsides to the municipal approach, one of which is the startup costs. Like they are high, but they are one-time costs. And I have heard criticism from folks in the community, and I voiced it myself here, about the use of ARPA funds for those expenses. I hear you. Like, yes, that is, I would say, not the most desirable use of them. And the way in which the ARPA process has played out on this select board has been patchy. You know, I think I saw Tim Wessel earlier. Tim, when he was still on the board, was really pushing to have a decent process around the use of ARPA funds. And for a variety of reasons, it hasn't happened as yet. But that doesn't mean that if we use ARPA funds for this purpose, that we can't actually have a really great process for what remains. I think what would remain is like 1.4 million, something like that, which is plenty for the community to kind of work on, to allocate to projects that they really see as important. There are uncertainties, and I have tried to make our revenue model not work. I have changed payer mixes so that we have 60% of folks on Medicare plans. I've changed payer mixes so that the private insurance goes down. I've, said we're going to charge BLS calls at 0. And whilst I can drive the revenue number down, the floor for that number does not ever really get low enough that the bottom line is more expensive than the proposal from Rescue. And I want to really speak to the proposal from Rescue. I understood that folks in this community wanted to have a contract with Rescue. What I did not hear was somebody say, this is what I like about the proposal from Rescue. And what I read in that proposal was that there would be less first response from Brattleboro, which gave me a lot of concern. That does not seem to lead to better patient care. The dispatch issue doesn't work for me. My concern would be that, like, we would only hear about a call if we're getting a call. That piece of my understanding may need further developing, but there is not enough in the current Rescue proposal for me to say, I want to choose this one. And so I believe there is plenty in the municipal option to say yes to, and that's what I'll be saying yes to today.
Oh, great. Thank you, Daniel. Liz?
You want to go?
Yeah, I'm going to speak. I know we want to hear from the public, so I'm just going to speak really briefly because I don't think I'm going to be able to articulate things as well as my fellow select board members have. I was thinking a lot about what I wanted to say tonight, and what the most important thing is I wanted to express a feeling that I've had for a while of regret regarding how this whole process began 14, 15 months ago when we concluded our contractual relationship with Rescue. I stand by my rationale and I stand by my vote for how I voted then, but the way that it occurred should have been better for the public, and it should have been better for municipal staff, including the fire department. But beyond regret, I brought from that experience a personal commitment to improve the process moving forward for wherever EMS was going to go after that occurred 15 months ago. And I did not know where it was going to go. And that began with the monthly EMS updates in July of 2022 and continued, most importantly, with the process we've been undertaking for the last 6 months in considering which EMS model will be best for the town of Brattleboro. And while I had regret at the beginning, I don't regret that we've undertaken this thorough investigation, because one of our jobs as a select board is to provide EMS services for the town of Brattleboro. And it's our duty to ensure that we are providing the best possible service available. This town has changed and evolved over the years, And we need to ensure that the services that we are providing this town align with that evolution. And I believe that this investigation that we've conducted has helped us to understand that. And for me, the term best EMS service breaks down to essentially 3 factors, and I rank them in importance. First is quality of care, second is fiscal responsibility, and third is transparency and accountability. And after reviewing all of the material, information, and analysis available to the board for the last year, including the AP Triton report, and trying to keep an open mind and an open heart, it's my belief that the municipal model is the best approach for the town. I believe that there are risks to this model, and I think that Daniel did a good job speaking to some of them. But I think there are risks to any of the models that we would consider, and it's our job to balance those risks and benefits on each one. And I'm confident that based on all of the available information to me personally, that at this point, the best direction of the town is the municipal model. And finally, after really considering a lot of the non-tangibles that have been part of the discussion in the later months of this process, I also believe that this essential service being owned by the town and owned by the people is critical. And so that's where I'm at now. And I think I saw that Liz had her hand up.
I did. Thank you, Ian. I just wanted to mention a couple of things, putting my urban planner hat on, regarding regionalism. The founders of Rescue did a really great thing 60 years ago by establishing a regional EMS service. It was innovative regional planning for Brattleboro and the surrounding towns. Sometimes regionalism is the best solution. That definitely applies to the smaller towns in our region with volunteer fire departments. But the evidence that we've reviewed indicates that Brattleboro has outgrown that model, and we need our own Fire-EMS service. Municipal EIS is the future for small urban hubs like Brattleboro. Indeed, Brattleboro is one of the last large towns in Vermont to move in this direction. We are not the same Brattleboro that we used to be. Back then, a rural regional ambulance service made sense, and Brattleboro pooled resources and expertise with other towns, and it worked, and everybody loved it. Today's Brattleboro is not the same. We're in a post-COVID world. We have a rapidly aging population, me included. We are less healthy. We have a drug addiction crisis. We have a homelessness crisis, and we have a climate crisis. We've gone from EMS calls in the hundreds to over 3,000 calls this year. This is an order of magnitude difference. And we have the opportunity for a model that better meets our needs, one that provides a seamless, fully unified municipal public safety and emergency response. Thanks, Ian.
Great. Thank you, Liz. Any other board member have any other comments or questions? And then I'm going to move to the public. Seeing none. So, yep, I see 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, if you guys want to raise your hands up, and we may start queuing. We'll see. And I see a couple hands. All right, Dale, I saw your hand up first. And I think it was Michael.
I have questions for Lenny.
Yep.
Do you have a full staff? Last time I knew you were about 9 people short.
So Dale, if you want to direct the questions to the select board, and
Okay,
you want to ask them, and then we'll answer them.
Okay. I want to know if Lenny's team is full staff, because we're going to need that full staff to pull this off. I mean, really, you know it and I know it. Lenny and I have been back and forth for a long time over this. It's a wonderful thing, but you need to walk into it fully staffed, not partially staffed. So that's what I want to know. Is the fire department here in Brattleboro fully staffed to handle both situations?
Great, thank you very much, Jill. So first, I'll speak to one part of that. Part of the municipal EMS approach will involve a staffing up of the fire department, but I let Chief Howard speak to the staffing situation at the moment,
we currently are full staff. We have 3 shifts of 8 people on each shift and 4 administrative staff. And we currently have 5 people on a list for potential hires. And Friday, we have another person coming in to take an exam. If that person passes the exam, there'll be 6 people on that list.
And John, what are the numbers that we will be, if we were to move for the fire EMS model, staffing to?
Yeah, so we would be moving to 3 shifts of 10 and an EMS supervisor. So that would be an additional 7 personnel that would be hired between now and July 1st.
And those numbers for those additional staff members are reflected in the costs of the EMS municipal model?
Yes, based on our collective bargaining agreement, which was reached this spring, early summer, those assumptions from that union agreement are built into the model for what the cost would be on the municipal model.
Great, thank you very much. John?
John Kennedy, Brattleboro. I'm here to support the municipal model. As I said the other night at the meeting at the library, I don't really want to go into the past, how we got here. I want to echo what I think the town manager said and Franz said directly. I think we need to go forward. And that's why I want to just say, let's go forward. But I do want to thank the town staff for the great job they've done in putting this memorandum together, because I think it's very clear, it's very thorough. Anybody that really wants to find out what's going on, all they have to do is read those 9 pages. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. Yes. And then I saw, yep.
Thank you, David Lovenbach, RTM District 3. I have 2 comments. One, at its 2023 meeting, RTM approved a motion calling on the Select Board to develop and implement a dedicated community engagement process for allocating ARPA funds before any further funds are spent. The process should be transparent and equitable and should build in accountability for responding to the public will. Before that meeting and since, and during Select Board meetings, members of the public have asked, really begged, you not to obligate ARPA funds until there was a systematic effort to ascertain public preferences for the spending of those monies. And we were given assurances that such a public process would occur before drawing on ARPA funds. That the proposal before you draws on 51% of the ARPA balance without promised public deliberation, I can only take as evidence of your bad faith. 2, at the 2022 meeting, RTM approved a budget that included a payment of $285,600 to rescue for EMS services which no one disputes provided quality patient care. Over 5 years, rescue's charges increased on average 5.6% per year. It should also be noted that in FY23, when we would have paid rescue $285,600, the town anticipated collecting $48,000 in dispatch fees from rescue, meaning that the net cost of EMS was anticipated to be less than $238,000. The proposed motion for town EMS is much more expensive and much more complicated than what we would have experienced if the existing relationship with rescue had continued. It should be noted fairly that the costs for rescue's proposal now on the table are higher because of the Select Board's decision of April 2022 to end its relationship with Rescue. This mess reflects badly on the members of the Select Board in office in April 2022, 3 of whose members continue to serve. The consequences of your decision tonight will reflect on this Select Board. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. Actually, I'm Tom Frank, I think was next, and then I see, and then Bob. Yep, good. Trying to keep the order. Also, board members want to speak to things, you're more than welcome to. You just need to.
Hello, my name is Tom Franks. I want to thank the Select Board, town staff, the fire department, and Rescue All for the excellent service they have provided us and will continue to provide us. I've already made my position pretty clear. The Select Board has gotten each member a letter from me recently, and you should thank Daniel Quipp for that, because I was keeping my head down until he stated that a pretty clear vocal majority would like the board to contract with Rescue again. And I wondered what it was a majority of. And it turned out to be a majority of the people who were commenting. I did a quick run through of all the comments on the public page. I counted 77 individuals commenting, many of them multiple times. And I counted 75 in favor of Rescue, which is not a majority of the community. That type of, I'm a data guy. I'm also a town rep. I serve as a lister for full disclosure. I've served as a member of the Energy Committee, but I've a couple boards in town. I was the executive director of Building a Better Brattleboro. I state all of this just so you know somewhat of who I am and why I care. I presented that there should be 4 things to consider. I have no expertise, and I didn't see anything that said that the patient care between any of the options was any really significantly different. I didn't see anything that could tell me that, oh yeah, you're going to get better patient care with option whatever. So I thought of 4 things, not necessarily in order: cost, transparency, accountability, and the level of service on sort of a materialistic level. How many ambulances? How many dedicated staff? And in the letter, which I'm very glad, and you can read it in the Reformer today, that's all laid out. I won't belabor the points any further, but to say that in every instance, in all the categories, the clear choice for me was the decision proposed by town management. And I thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Millicent and then Bob. Oh, yes. Sorry, 1 second, Millicent, if you want to, 1 moment, if you want to let Franz just wants to respond to. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say to Tom that I'm a data guy too, and I spent 2 years at the University of Massachusetts getting a master's degree in epidemiology and statistics. So study design and interpretation of study results are close to my heart. The fact that the material collected on our website in terms of responses from the community has to be considered anecdotal and self-selected does not at all dissuade me from the conclusion that a large majority of people in town have really good feelings towards Rescue, and in the absence of other information are strongly predisposed to have Rescue as the provider of emergency medical services in Brattleboro. So I share the intellectual conclusion that we don't know what the numbers truly are based on the data available, but my strong impression, despite my vote tonight, is that the people of town really do favor Rescue, and that I'm swimming against that current in my vote. I didn't sleep much last night thinking, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? And it's possible, but I'm doing what I'm doing based on all the evidence that's available, but not with the idea that there's this secret majority of townspeople who support the municipal option.
I'm sorry that my statement was interpreted in that fashion. I don't doubt that, as I said, I thank Rescue for their service for these many years. So I'm sure many other people do. As Mr. Fish, Mr. Case said, sorry, as Pete said, thank you. You don't care what's on the box, and and the people who are managing the box and driving the box are all great. And I have no idea how they manage to do their job so well, so consistently under such adverse circumstances, regardless of what's on the box. So I didn't mean to imply that many people in town don't have positive feelings for Rescue. I just wanted to point out that it was Mr. Quip's comment of majority that pushed me over the edge to stick my head up, which I usually try not to do.
Welcome to the minority.
Great. And I didn't see Tom get back up there, but let's try not to have too much back and forth.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. And go ahead, Millicent.
Millicent Cooley, Brattleboro. Thanks. I think that was really excellent. I thought the statement from the town was really well done. Really appreciate that. And appreciate the thought that went into it. And one thing that Fran said I really also appreciated about the way that this situation happened, that has been extremely confusing for me. And it made me confused about the ethics about it. Not necessarily judgmental, but confused. We didn't have the information. So I think the way he put it was really well and kind of put me at ease. Also, Daniel Quip's statement I thought was very balanced. So I am behind the decision that you are all making, and I thank you.
Thank you, Millicent. Bob Ozer.
Bob Ozer, Brattleboro. So, I don't want to be negative, but I do want to lay some information out to you. And I think you need to take it into consideration. So I had made a request. Well, first of all, someone had mentioned an op-ed in the paper, but it wasn't really an op-ed. It actually had numbers in it. And it said that 16 staff had left the fire department during the time frame that the EMS model was being considered. The 16 number comes from the town website. It doesn't come from an op-ed. So I looked at that and I said, there's got to be more detail behind that number. So I asked to see if there were exit interviews with respect to those staff. And I was told, well, that would not be a good thing to disclose because you could probably easily identify who those individuals are. On the 13th of September, I went to my mailbox, and it was a letter. And the letter, I'm not going to read it in its entirety, but I'll quote a couple parts. And before I even read it, and after I read the letter, I looked at certain parts and I said, well, is there a way I can verify the veracity of this? Because it's just a letter. So I reached out to some people who are closer to the ground than I am. Not heads of agencies, but workers and people who knew workers. So in the letter, it says, since July 1 of 2022, the EMS transition has completely encompassed the Brattleboro Fire Department. Fire-based training has gone out the window, and the only topic of discussion has been the EMS transition. That seemed to resonate with people that I talked to who were closer to the facts than I am. The system, this is another quote from the letter, the system that was in place prior to July 1, 2022, worked exceptionally well. there were less than a handful of employees at the Brattleboro Fire Department that refused to play nice with Rescue, Inc. But it was undoubtedly what was best for the town of Brattleboro. Rescue, Inc. consistently provided an ALS response that BFD just can't match. This one I was more cautious on until I talked to some people, like even today, who it resonated with. The majority of staff at BFD do not want to be working on an ambulance. They do want an ambulance so that their staffing and pay will increase, which needs to happen anyways, according to the AP Triton study. But the assignment on the ambulance is something that employees dread. It recollected for me, and I talked to someone in the back row earlier, I used to do hiring for a state agency in New York. And a woman came in and worked for the city of New York and wanted to work for the state. And the pay was much better with the state, but it was a street job. And she worked in the courts. And she said, I really like to work with you guys because the pay's better. And I said, you know, probably against my own interest since I was doing the hiring, but I said, don't take the right job for the wrong reason.
Bob, I'm just going to ask you to finish.
There's more. And
I'm going to ask you to finish your point. I've given you another full minute over. I want you to have an opportunity to read the letter, the portions you want.
Well, I'm not going to read I won't read the entire letter.
I'm happy to recognize you again too later, but if you can just wrap up your comment, please.
Okay, so if I don't understand what you're saying, is that I'm over the 3-minute time limit now?
Yes.
Okay, and you're going to spot me a little bit more, or no?
I already have, but I'm just asking you.
Okay.
I'm just asking you so that other people have an opportunity to speak.
Right.
You can conclude your comment now.
So might I inquire how much time I have in order to conclude?
You're at 5 minutes now. So.
Okay. Do you have a watch there? You can.
Yeah, I'm just using my phone.
Okay, but I can't see that from here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. So you're giving me.
Respectfully asking you to conclude your comment.
No, I'm fine with that. It's just that I'm trying to speak to you, and you're telling me that I'm limited in time, and I want to find out how much time I have to speak.
I was just trying to be polite and let you finish your comment.
Okay, so may I continue?
Yeah. How much more do you have?
Not very much more.
There you go.
Okay. So I want to share one more thing from the letter, and that's the signature part. As a former employee of the Brattleboro Fire Department, I know all of these things to be true. My conclusion, looking to the September 15th memo that's in the backup material, the abrupt course correction and the lack of notice that such a change was even being contemplated damaged the town credibility with the public. How will we restore that credibility for any future decisions? I have an answer. If you want the answer, I'll tell you. At the September 7th meeting, there was a motion. That motion was made by Elizabeth McLaughlin to have a discussion of transition of care and interagency coordination. I'm sure council will tell us we're not going to have a granular discussion of those items in an open session. But I suggest to you, and I think it would not be against law, to have that discussion with BFD, with Rescue, in an executive session where you have a moderator or a mediator who can work out the details. That's my plea to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, other hands, I saw yes, and then, do you still have your hand up, Will?
So,
And then just can other people raise their hands who wish to speak or, okay, yes, 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 and still no hands. Okay.
All right, Sandy Tetro, or Pinger from Brattleboro. A couple things. I have sent an email and got a kind of response this morning, but no answer. You talk about accountability. We had Golden Cross come to our in front of our house. Someone had passed out. I don't know the details. But when Golden Cross left, there was trash on our yard. I call it medical hazard trash. I had to pick it up. I don't have medical gloves. That's unacceptable. Someone I work with, someone they know had fallen, broken a hip. Golden Cross came. They had to lift the person into a chair. I assume there's stairs, so no stretcher could be used. A Brattleboro Fire Department trainee refused to lift this person. So someone else in the house had to lift this person and put her on the chair. That too is unacceptable. Where is the accountability? Did Golden Cross go back and say, this person didn't do their job? Or because it's the good old boys, just push it under the rug and it never gets reported? That's just not acceptable. When the fire chiefs came and spoke, I think we should have had one who was against Brattleboro starting a new EMS. It seems all the research that has been done has been pushing everything towards having a Brattleboro EMS and not showing any of the reasons why we shouldn't. And that is not a good thing for the town. And I had asked for Golden Cross's financials, and I was asked why. We're given their income, why are we not given their expenses? Why did they not complete an RFP? Did they lose money with the town of Brattleboro, so they don't want to do it? Their expenses would be similar to what ours is going to be. And I think it's important that we have that information before you make a decision. I would ask that you table this for another week or two, get a new RFP from Rescue. Maybe they want to use Keene because it's free, where we're charging them. I think things can be worked out. There is no problem with Rescue's services to the people. It's a personality thing. From the sounds of things, you shouldn't put people's lives at risk over personality.
Great. Thank you, Sandy. And I think it was, yes, you had your hand up for a while. And then we'll hear from the last three who have their hands up now, and then we're going to take a brief break because it's, and I know, oh, I got one there. I think we're going to take a break after these four, and then we'll get back to it.
Will Cram, District 2 RTM. Mr. Chairman, I want to make reference to the open meeting law, and I'm reading from subsection H, which says, at an open meeting, the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to express its opinion on matters considered by the public body during the meeting, as long as order is maintained. Public comment shall be subject to reasonable rules established by the chairperson. Mr. Chairman, at the beginning of the meeting, you imposed a 3-minute time limit on public comment. And given the magnitude of the decision that you're about to make and its importance to the members of the community, with all due respect, I think that's an unreasonably short time limit. And I ask for your indulgence because I know that my comments will exceed 3 minutes. Knowing that, do I have your permission to proceed?
How long do you think you'll take?
Probably 6 or 7 minutes.
Can you break it into two so we can provide the other people who also have an opportunity to speak?
Can I break it into?
2 comments so that we can let them speak and then we can recognize you again?
No, I want to say what I want to say, and I'll sit down when I'm done. I'm just giving you advance warning that I'm going to exceed your 3-minute time limit, which I think is unreasonable. May I proceed? Thank you. I want to start out by saying that as I suspected, the Fire-EMS model was predetermined. It was the goal from the very beginning, and I don't think the town had any intention of giving serious and honest consideration to Rescue's proposal. The town stacked the deck against rescue in the bidding process. I mean, if you go on the town's website and you look at the name of the project, it says it all. Fire-EMS Transition Project. So the goal all along was to transition the fire department into an EMS provider. And the die was already cast a long time ago. Now, I want to tell you that I was profoundly disappointed with the public forum that we had last week. It was advertised, and I have a copy of the flyer. It was advertised as a public forum on EMS alternatives. There was no discussion of EMS alternatives. The town opened up the meeting by choosing the fire department. They ordered all of the department heads to appear, and each and every one of them read a prepared statement. And that took an hour. People who attended that meeting were upset. They were frustrated. They were angry. They felt like the town had hijacked the meeting. Now, there is a movement in this country among cities and towns to cooperate on a regional EMS model because this concerns healthcare, saving people's lives. We're talking about pre-hospital care. The days of load and go are gone. This is a critical service that we provide to our residents. Prior to my comments at the public forum, I didn't read or hear anything about patient care, and that phrase suddenly appeared in the town's memorandum recommending the town EMS model. Now, we have one of the best regional EMS providers in our backyard, and I don't understand why Brattleboro wants to go backward. It's as if we're closing ranks and saying, we'll get our own ambulances and we'll serve our own people. We don't care about the other people and we don't need anybody's help. And that is really, really short-sighted. You know that we are grappling with homelessness and addiction and overdoses and poverty and a lack of housing and gun violence and crime. These are all things that put a strain on our resources and our services. We are going to have another pandemic. And we're going to have floods, and we're going to have fires, and we're going to have extreme weather and heat and drought. These issues don't respect town boundaries. These are regional and national and global issues. And the town should be working with rescue to prepare ourselves and solve these issues. So I'm totally confused as to why the town wants to contract and say, we don't need rescue, we can do it all ourselves. Now, the town has already rejected rescue, and it's your decision. You've already gave us a preview of how you're going to vote. It looks like 5-0. And you can just rubber stamp what the town has already decided, but here's a news flash. You do not work for the town. You work for the people. The people elected you. You took an oath of allegiance to the state of Vermont, and you took an oath of office. You know, we have a charter. We have a charter in this town. We've had it since 1753, almost 40 years before we became a state. Vermont was the first town granted a charter by the legislature in this state. The first. And I read this at the public forum, and I'm going to read it again. This is from our charter. This is the preamble, subchapter 1. The Brattleboro Town Charter is a legal governance document designed and enacted to serve the needs of all Brattleboro residents by 1, addressing the common good of all citizens, 2, respecting the will of the people. Do the people of this town want rescue? Do the people in this town want you to spend the ARPA money buying ambulances and equipment? You all know that the ARPA funds do not have to be obligated until the end of 2024, and you don't have to spend the money until the end of 2026. This isn't your money. This is our money. Don't you think the people have a right to be heard on how that money is spent? Look, over the past 10 days, we have circulated a very simple petition which says, we, the undersigned residents of the town of Brattleboro, hereby petition the Selectboard to choose Rescue Inc. as our emergency services provider. These petitions were signed at the co-op, at the farmer's market, at the senior center, on Main Street, in neighborhoods, and in homes. And I want to deliver these petitions to you today. We have 425 people. This wasn't an online petition where people can click that they like it. These are actual people who engaged with us, talked to us, expressed their frustration, expressed their love of rescue, saying they want rescue to be our EMS service provider. So, you know, at the public forum,
And Will, I'm just going to let you know you're at 8 minutes. And so I'm politely asking you to conclude your comment, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
At the public forum, I posed the question whether the town had the courage to admit that it made a mistake a year ago. And the question that I posed to the 5 of you is, do you have the courage to respect the will of the people? Mr. Chairman, may I approach and deliver the petitions to the board?
Yes, you usually put them over there and it passes around.
So I should deliver them to the...
I'm sorry, I'm pointing to the corner of the table there.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Yeah, why don't we take a break now? We'll take a break for 5 minutes and then we'll come back. So we'll come back at 8:25. Okay, everybody, if I can ask y'all to make your way back to your seats. Oh. And that includes the hallway. Yeah.
Who's the sergeant
All right.
at arms?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we had a couple of hands up. I think Dick's hand was up. We've got 2 hands. Oh, let's do Michael first, who had their hand up on Zoom for a while. And I appreciate their patience. Yeah.
All set?
Yep, we can hear you.
Sure. So my name is Michael Bosworth. I'm a resident of Brattleboro. The EMS decision is not an emotional one for me. My household has been lucky. We have never needed to use the emergency medical services of either Rescue Inc. or the Brattleboro Fire Department. But I do respect both organizations highly. I have not personally closely studied all the fine details comparing the financials of the Rescue Inc. option versus the Brattleboro Fire Department option. I have looked to others who have done so, I learned a lot from Tom Frank's recent analysis and column, where he laid out the reasons the Brattleboro Fire Department option is better for the town financially. I've also learned a lot from Kate O'Connor and her very, very close monitoring of all the revenue and expense factors, including those that are still unknown. So I've now personally come down to not firmly knowing which is the better option financially. I wrote a letter to the reformer late last week that just got printed this morning. Were I to write it today, I would not state definitively that either rescue or Brattleboro Fire Department is less costly. I just don't know. And not knowing is one of the unsettling feelings about all this. I think it was Franz earlier said, are these results guaranteed? No. I do know that we have long been lucky here to have such a quality EMS organization in our region as Rescue Inc., which operates regionally. I am biased toward regional solutions. Maybe that's a fault. I don't know. I also would much rather see ARPA funds go toward other capital needs, such as energy efficiency, renewable energy projects for the town, the pool upgrade, and others. So I'm left with an unsettling feeling with the many ifs with the Brattleboro Fire Department option, not knowing if all the revenues are realistic or not. We heard earlier that the department is fully staffed. That's a good thing. We then heard that a lot of the fire departments don't want to go out on an ambulance. That's not a very good thing. So another unknown. So I just think this can't be an easy decision for the select board. I personally hope they choose the option with the fewest unknowns and longest track record, the Rescue Inc. solution. But I do respect the highly thorough review the staff and select board have given this. So I hope the best for the town in the coming years. And that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michael. All right. I see Carolyn, and then Carol had her hand up. Do you still, or? And I've got a hand there, and then Dick. Anybody else? You, one quick one? Okay. Yeah, Carolyn first.
Yes, Carolyn Conrad, Town of Brattleboro. I want to say that my comments feel a little anecdotal because clearly the select board has made up their mind. Clearly the select board made up their mind when they initially decided not to go forward with the contract with Rescue. And I feel like the select board is being short-sighted in their decision-making process. I have a couple points that, again, I'm not sure will make any difference at this point, but I feel the need to say them. The criticism of the rescue bid is a little like closing the barn door after the horses are out. In essence, if you look at it like a breakup, the town of Brattleboro broke up with Rescue Inc. and then said, oh, maybe we can get back together, and left Rescue in a position to kind of try and model a response anticipating what the challenges were that initially led to the breakup. And so I think you see some things in there trying to say, well, you think there's a problem with the fire department, we'll minimize the fire department. If you think that, all of these things. So I feel like the bidding process wasn't a fair bidding process. I've also heard a lot about the regional aspect of Rescue and as if that's a detriment. I want to draw the select board's attention to the fact that Rescue Inc.'s participation in the state of Vermont's COVID response, where they administered over 61,000 doses of the COVID vaccine statewide and led to the fact that the state of Vermont had one of the best COVID responses in the nation, all while responding to 100% of emergency calls in Brattleboro shows that their regional nature does not impact their service to Brattleboro. And at no point was Brattleboro left short of ambulances or response time. And never once did rescue have to go to a mutual aid to cover, given the fact that their ambulances were all over the state assisting with the COVID response. And the service that Brattleboro, that rescue provides, has been held as one of the, if not the best, emergency medical response in the state of Vermont and regionally. And to look to recreate something, it's kind of like saying, I'm going to start a new university next door to Harvard. It seems like Harvard's doing a pretty good job. I'm not sure that we need another one, even though Harvard is a private university. Might be a bad analogy. My last point is related to the ARPA funds. Yes, you can use them to build an ambulance service. You'll have to hire people, you have to buy ambulances, all of things that rescue already has. I would prefer to see the ARPA funds invested in our police department. We have huge issues of security, safety, and crime in Brattleboro. I've lived here for almost 25 years. I have never had to lock my car. I've never had to lock my home. This year, I wouldn't leave either one unlocked. We have issues that need to be addressed, and instead we're going to spend ARPA funds on an issue that is not critical. It is already being solved. And my frustration is that my comments in this meeting and all of the previous meetings make no difference to this select board and the previous select board, that this was a foregone conclusion. And I want to just voice my frustration with the fact that as a resident, I do not feel represented by this board.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. And I'm not sure who there's a hand in the back. Your hand's no longer up. Okay. Dick, you had your hand up for a while if you'd like to go next. Yeah. And then we have Heidi, and then, Carol, and then, yep. And then if we've got a couple who want to speak again, and then I think we're going to hear back from the select board. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board. Thank you, everybody who showed up here this evening. This kind of reminds me of the old light beer commercials. Less filling, tastes great. And I say that with a little bit of humor, but I'm talking about Rescue and Brett Fire. They're both quality organizations that I feel very fortunate that we have had in our town to take care of our community. And since the board has already made up their decision, as soon as you spoke, which you guys did it a little different than when I served on the board, heard from the public first, and then we spoke and made our decision. So it's like everybody who spoke here, whether what side you were on, it really wasn't relevant at this point. I did hear a couple of things that people referenced about that I never heard people complaining about. I never heard people complaining about Rescue's transparency or opening up their books. Nobody ever asked for their books before. And not to say that nobody should have, but nobody had ever done that. And nobody ever really accused them of not being transparent. So for me, I like these guys over here, and I like the guys that are back in the right-hand corner. After last Tuesday's forum, Wednesday morning, I had an issue at my building. These guys were there in a heartbeat. They responded like the true professionals they are. And did what I would have expected them to do. And I'm very proud to say that I'm glad that we have them and they're doing an outstanding job. And I had rescue a couple of years, had to transport me from Brattleboro to Keene. And they did a great job. I'm still here. The question I have for you, Mr. Chairman, if I can get this up here, goes to why I asked you to pull the EMS and talking about revenues. So, and I believe that is on page 51 of 136. I'll give my question to you. Chuck will probably answer it, or
I imagine so.
So, invoice data collected from July 1, 2022. Invoiced is $1,171,174. Credits, which would mean collected, $777,090.57. So that's a 14-month ratio, and we haven't hit the revenue projections that you have for rescue for a year. I think you're estimating collecting over 800,000 with 900,000 being a high. Is that, would someone nod their head and say that's correct?
Yeah.
So here you are, you're at 60%, roughly 60% at 14 months. Now, I do know in the first year you have revenue, right? Like $300,000 you're going to stick in case we have a shortfall.
Not 150, I think.
What is it? I can't remember the numbers. I'm just, I'm not going to hold you to it.
Yeah.
There's a significant amount of money that's punched in there for the first year. And it is based upon, we're not going to collect a whole lot of money that first month, right? That when we bill in July, first 3 months. But then I looked up here above for July of 2023 to August 31, 2023, which is 2 months, invoiced $169,466. Credits, $149,245.23. Write-offs, $16,221. How do we write off anything? Because when I look someplace else in this narrative, which I think was number 3, they talk about waiting a year before we write off anything. So if somebody can talk to me about that line right there that I just talked about, which I was surprised to get numbers for because I asked for that all last year, and then tell me what the thinking is on our collection for 14 months and only being at 777, if that does not concern you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. AC here, are you?
Sure, I can help with that. I'm not sure I can answer it in complete narrative, only because of my knowledge in the billing. What you see here in the EMS report is reflective directly from Dale Gerard, the owner of Golden Cross. And we asked him a series of questions at the end of our last EMS report. You weren't real clear on exactly what you wanted us to ask, so I narrowed it down based on that conversation to these 4 questions. And his answers were what you see here in front of you. He describes what write-offs are and what contractual allowances are. In terms of your question of the numbers written here and write-offs is the amount we don't believe we will receive. This will be the amount of the unpaid balance remaining on the books after a year. So I can't answer as to why he has already 2021 in write-offs. I believe that also equates to some of those contractual allowances, but until I would have a conversation with Dale, I can't confirm that's the reason.
Okay. Thank you, AC Kier. And John, can you speak to kind of the second part of Dick's question, it's at, right now we're at a credit of 777,990.57. How does that compare to our estimate using the Golden Cross number, which has been sort of our conservative number that we've been using to understand what a potential municipal EMS model could look like?
Yep.
And and this is a report for July 1st to August 31st. So this is the 13th month or the 12th month?
14th.
So this is, well.
No, it's not.
This is 13th.
The 13th
13th,
month.
yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so.
Because a month back.
So the amount that's been collected, and if you.
14th month.
The amount that's been collected is 92% of the estimate. So it's very close to what we're predicting for a year. And if you look at the credits coming in now on a monthly basis, just multiply that out by 12 and it's 1.78 million. So this does not concern me at all. In fact, this is very promising. I think it might actually come in higher than what we're estimating in the table 1. I think that's going to end up being even higher than what the low estimate is there. So it doesn't bother me at all.
Table 1 is, John's referring to the first table in the memorandum about the 5-year projection, correct?
Yeah. Yes, the low revenue estimate, 837,000 was the low revenue estimate, and here we are, 92% of that with a month to go.
Daniel?
Thanks. I don't work for Golden Cross. I didn't do these numbers, but like from the times we've talked about this comes up once a month, right? And we've basically had the same question every month for the last several, which is that's not a criticism. It's just, I think we've been kind of grappling with this and trying to explain it in a way that's clear. And how I understand the number for July 1 through August 31 is that those credits are not necessarily payments on transports that occurred between those dates, right? You could have had a transport that occurred in the month of June that didn't get paid until somewhere within that time frame, and so it appears as a credit, which is why those numbers look really high compared to how they looked at the very beginning. It's a rolling calendar. And then I've got my spiffy little revenue model here, and I had an interesting conversation with the Golden Cross provider on Sunday, talking about billing, and I don't know, hopefully this is not going to reveal some sort of trade secret, but they told me something about like how they bill, and it's like not that different. It's a very low number. They don't charge a whole lot for their services, and it's not that different from the actual reimbursement rates for Medicare. And so if you were to kind of use our revenue model and punch in the Medicare reimbursements, you arrive at a number that's actually around about 770,000 for a 12-month period. Our revenue model takes into account 2,043 transports, which is the actual number of transports that happened in the last, year of doing this. So I think your concern is is our revenue estimate way off? And our revenue estimate for the low estimate is based on a Golden Cross number and then projected a little bit. It's not like completely the same. There's a projection in there. But I think that our revenue model that Patrick created is sound. And if you play around with it a little bit, I'm happy to send you one that you can play around with. It's hard to look at that model and not end up with a revenue number for a 12-month period that is at least 800,000. And so when I look at these numbers, I'm not really using 942. I don't even think about that number. I'm thinking like somewhere between 800 and 840,000 as the revenue we might expect to receive, and how does that impact the bottom line? And what we're talking about here, I feel like it's worth remembering that we're talking about a choice between two proposals. We already said the AMR proposal isn't going to fly. And so using that 800 to 840,000 number and comparing the impact on the bottom line, I'm still in the place where I would choose the municipal proposal. I don't know, it's a lot of words, sorry.
Okay, so in the back, and I'm sorry, I can't even see who it is. So.
Good evening. My name is Alex Richardson. I'm from Chesterfield, New Hampshire. I was a Brattleboro firefighter for about 5 years, and I was one of the 16 that was in the article. I really just wanted to say that as being one of the 16, nobody ever approached me. Nobody talked to me. My reasonings to leave were a personal reason for a good opportunity for my family. I loved my job. And a lot of the members here love their jobs, and the past members love their jobs. It's not a career you get into where you're looking at the numbers of, it's going to make me the most money. You do it because you care. So I would encourage people, if anybody's worried that somebody's not going to jump on an ambulance or jump on a fire truck because of the call or because of their beliefs, I encourage them to talk to the people. It's a very different lifestyle. It's kind of like a different culture. Media and mainstream don't really understand it. You have to really get into it to understand it. So I'd encourage people, if you have any doubts, talk to them. Talk to the people. You pay for the building. It's your building. Go in there, ask them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What was his name?
Okay, I'm going to go Heidi and then. We can see you, Heidi, but we can't hear you yet. Okay, there we go.
Oh, you can see, but okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Heidi Fisher, Brattleboro resident. I had written to each of the select board members early in this process, and my notes are on, my comments are on brattleboro.org. I still feel very strongly about them. I am, excuse me, I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm having my own medical issues of my own at the moment and have to be at home. I'm an ER nurse at BMH and have been on the receiving end of patients who come in from both Rescue Inc. for many years, of course, Golden Cross with Brat Fire. I know many of the Brat Fire guys. I know many of the rescue guys. I was on rescue myself for many years and was on rescue's board for about 5 years, about 10 years ago, I think it was. I know both organizations, Brat Fire to be a very high quality fire organization. I know EMS to be a very high quality EMS organization. And I think, I agree with many of the comments made tonight, like Carolyn's and use of ARPA funds and wills and things like that. But I feel like there's been an elephant in the room this whole time that no one has talked about, and at risk of getting trouble at work. I will say that there is no question in my mind that the quality of care that rescue provides is far superior to anyone else's care that I have seen come into our ER, and I've worked in the ER for 13 years. I find it very hard to think that Brat Fire feels that having a few EMTs on staff, some of whom have moved up to the A level, 2 paramedics who are fully trained, and a few more who are very newly trained because they did some of their training in the ER, and a few just finishing the program is considered a quality care for the care of town of Brattleboro. Think about who you would like as your doc or your caregiver in the most critical moments of your life. And I don't think it's someone who's just finished a program and you are their first, whatever it might be, or they have very little experience. They mean well, they are learning a lot, but they are green. And I can say that some of the mistakes I have seen them make bringing patients into the ER are frightening is not even the word. And I won't go into details, but I have multiple examples of things that should never have happened pre-hospitally. And it's very, very scary. So to think that the town And as Franz, I couldn't believe to hear this out of your mouth, Franz, that you said, I have heard, and statistically, it looks like the people of Brattleboro want to rescue, but that's not the decision we're going to make. You are our select board. We have elected you to represent us, and I feel that you are not doing that. You are not listening. And in terms of transparency, you talk about wanting transparency in this process. And you, as a select board, have been far from transparent in this process and far from accountable to the townspeople in this process. And I find that very hard to accept, given what has been stated in the bylaws of what you are there to do for us as our select board. So I agree with many of things have been said about how ARPA money should be spent, and that it would not be on EMS, in my opinion. And it really does matter whose name is on the box. That's what I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. We'll go to Carol next.
Hi, Carol McManus, resident of Brattleboro. I want to go, I have a couple of comments and then a couple of questions for clarity. One, first I want to say it's been a very long journey for all of you. You know, I sort of jumped on board. Well, I did jump on board once the contract was taken back or whatever, not renewed. And I was, and I've said this before, I wasn't happy with the way that it was done. I don't want to dwell on that. I let that go. I have heard the board, I've heard you all say, well, maybe not all of you, but I've heard a few of you acknowledge that the way that it was handled was not the best way. And I've learned that when we say we're sorry or that we make amends, that means we're not going to do it again. So going forward, I hope that's the case. I'm not here to sling mud at either sides, or there's a few things, I commend you all. I do think it needs to be said that I was not happy with the wording, such as, we will make that decision. It is our decision. But I've also heard since then that it's a collective decision, and that's a better way to phrase it. You have been elected by us, all of you, and I'll remind my neighbors that the other select board members wore everything on their sleeve before you voted them in. This last election, there were 3 people that were elected. And based on what I'm hearing and seeing, more than the majority of the select board were not saying they were going to go try and get Rescue Inc. back. You knew their policies. And please don't tell me that the majority of Brattleboro voting that took the time to go out and vote didn't do their research. And if you didn't, I'm sorry, it's not on us. So yeah, I have a hard time, and with myself, I can't, I understand that I voted for who I voted for, knowing I did the research, what their thoughts, we picked their brains a long time. I think I remember hearing Peter saying, what do you mean we're not going to talk about Rescue Inc.? During an open forum at the Boys and Girls Club. So it's been discussed. You knew who you voted in. Now we're back, we're here, right? 2023, September 19th. I also heard, and I'm going to say this, that people were on the fence. And I have to agree, we don't know what process their thinking was. Just to even imply that they were, I just don't think it's fair to all those to imply or to really believe. Do you really believe that there's a conspiracy going on here? I don't buy into that. I think there was some bias, yes, but I also think that there's at least a few of them. I don't know about all of them, but I think most of the people on this select board have thought this through, have done a lot of work. And so for that, I commend you, and I appreciate that. The couple of questions I have, and just curious, because I had a conversation with one of you, and it was brought to my attention about how we have, the fire department is municipal. So we have that building, we pay for that already out of our taxes, right? That's being maintained. So I was just kind of like wondering, because it would be nice to have some positive stuff thinking going forward. Well, we're not going to have to pay for that Rescue Inc. building, right? Because it's all already being paid for. Do you know what the difference is? Like, okay, we're paying for heat already, we're paying for electricity, we're paying for that. Just in general, and please excuse me, it is what it is. I'm not a numbers person. I have to have everything right in front of me, and I have to go over it again and again. But can you tell me, just tell us after I ask one more question, basically, what do you think, is there going to be a huge difference in cost? Are we going to save in that area? When you speak of revenue, are you just talking about the cases coming in, which I think that's what you're talking about? Yeah, I was just curious because France, I think, brought it up, and how that would play into it. Is that like a really big thing? That's one less bill that we have? I'm really trying to focus on the future and the positive aspect. I also know that this is not over. People are going to be scrutinizing and scrutinizing and scrutinizing. It could be, it could go the other way and we'd have, I just think that we need to try and come together and work as a community and neighborhood to make this work. We're looking towards the future. And it is going to happen. We all know that. So do we want it to be successful or do we want to fight and push? What can we do to help you make this successful? That's what I want to know. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Carol. So to address that question, as a positive, one of the things that goes into the consideration of the different models is, what infrastructure does the town already have? And that includes the firefighters, equipment that we have for the firefighters and the building and things like that. As for like additional costs for like building maintenance and upkeep and like heating and things like that, I'm not sure if we have that as an element, but I think it's a good question. And so I'm going to look to John.
Sure. Thanks, Ian. So if you look at Table 1 in the memo, it fully outlines all of the additional costs that would be necessary to provide EMS services. One of the benefits of going with the municipal model is that we already have sunk costs in the fire station and in having to heat it and having to cool it and everything else. We're going to do that anyways because we need a fire department to fight fires if they occur. So what this municipal model does is it builds on top of those sunk costs these amounts that are in this table. And if you look at that, at the end of the day, when you look over a 5-year period, it's $1.2 million cheaper to add that on in the municipal model to the already sunk costs in the fire department than it would be to go with the rescue proposal.
And I think the only other thing on that is we also do have a sense just for kind of what, if there were any kind of additional costs that went into just the building and having an ambulance service there, because Golden Cross operates out of the fire department now. So we see in our monthly reports what that looks like. But as for like the bays and things like that, the building already has that capacity. Okay, of course. Okay, yep. So two additional comments, and then I think we're going to turn it back to the select board.
Will Cram, I wanted to speak to the petitions that I just delivered to the select board. And what I want to say is, if you have any doubt whatsoever that those 425 signatures represent the will of the people, then I encourage you to lay the motion on the table. Don't make a decision. Let's have a referendum. Let's let the town vote, a simple vote, up or down. Do you want rescue or not? I'm not optimistic that you'll do that. And I say that because I've heard members of this board say in the past, we'll do whatever we want, which is disheartening, to be frank.
Thank you, Will.
Just a couple things. Sandy from
Yep.
Brattleboro.
Hi, Sandy.
So AP Triton was the only one that was a third party who said rescue was the best option. Golden Cross is good because they're professional. We have our trainees going in on them. My question is, with the new employees that you will be hiring, is 9 months long enough for them to train to be able to be our EMS ready to go on July 1st? You wanted contracts from either AMR or rescue for 5 years. So how long are you going to run Brattleboro's EMS to see if it works or not? Are you going to give it a 5-year? If you find we're in the red and we're not making it, are you going to make a decision and stop it? Or what is your time frame to decide whether or not this was truly a correct decision or not?
Great. Thank you, Sandy. So can I turn to either chief or assistant chief on the training question? So 9 months, we need to hire 6 additional firefighters and 1 EMS coordinator. How do you feel about that? Is a big task.
I will be ready on July 1st, 2024. If I didn't think we would be ready, I would stand up and tell these people we wouldn't be ready. The Brattleboro Fire Department is ready to do the service.
As to the other question, I actually think that is, and my boss always yells at me for saying actually. I believe that the municipal option presents a opportunity there that it's not permanent. A future select board could choose to, in 5 years, in some time in the future, move to a third-party model again and sell ambulances that we've acquired after having operated it. It's one of the elements of the municipal model that is very powerful, is that of that control. I think personally, based on what I've said tonight, based on everything that we've reviewed, all of the information, that we will see that this is a financially viable option for the town moving forward, and I think that it's going to prove itself. But yeah, that's part of the control. That is part of the control that the select board, that the town has, if it's a municipal model. Liz.
I just wanted to get back to Sandy's comment about AP Triton. Maybe the chief would like to talk. It was not my understanding that the AP Triton report recommended rescue. Rich Buchanan told me personally that the Brattleboro Fire Department can do this. Maybe the chief would like to speak about what AP Triton's report.
Rich has expressed the same as many other people have tonight. He said both agencies are more than capable of providing the service.
Daniel?
Not on that topic, on the topic of training and staff. I think this is my assumption that the people that will be hired and the people that already work for the fire department, even if they're new to the fire department, are not necessarily new to EMS work. That we're trying to hire people that have some level of experience already. So it's not as if day one they come in, they know nothing, and then we get started. We're trying to hire skilled providers already.
That's true.
Right, and then continue to build on their skills. And, I'd imagine that same hiring mentality occurs in all organizations providing these services.
Yeah, quick follow-up. Yeah.
Are we hiring firefighters or EMS or a combination?
That is that's kind of part of it, right? I'll let Chief Howard speak to that because he looks eager to.
The firefighter or the fire EMS supervisor, the minimum level will be a paramedic. That person will need to be a paramedic to take that position.
And how about the other?
We require people now, starting with our new contract, that you have to have EMT to even be considered to, and firefighter 1 to be considered to be hired.
Daniel.
I'm jumping around. I wanted to go back to your comment about, like, if it doesn't work, will you do something, right? And, like, the good thing about doing it with this body in this space is that every year there's going to need to be some kind of rate setting. Every year there's a budget process. Every year we'll get the opportunity to figure out, is this working? Is it going in the right direction? Is it going in the wrong direction? And, you know, maybe sometimes there'll be some little course corrections. I would imagine that, you know, future select boards, I have one more year to serve after, you know, this next election cycle, and I will be really interested to see what happens during that time. But I'd imagine future select boards are going to continue to monitor this piece of town operations in the same way that they monitor the effectiveness of all the other operations. And with this being a new element, you know, it absolutely needs extra scrutiny. You know, I know that will happen at an operations level in the fire department, but it's also going to happen at this kind of policy level as well.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, so I think we've gotten the public has. I think we don't have any other hands up now, so I think we'll move back to Select Board for additional comments, questions that you all have. I have a quick one, if I'm not seeing another hand. John, can you just quickly explain the sort of difference in revenue from the Table 1 chart for me one more time to make sure that I understand it, as to the sort of point that you made that it would reimburse, or not reimburse, but it would make up the ARPA costs that we would spend. Because under Table 1, the low revenue estimates, the municipal option would still be in the red, is my understanding. So it's kind of a confusing statement to make, and I would just like some clarification.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
I'll give it my best try. So what this table shows is revenues at the top. So those are the estimated revenues over the 5-year period, which total $4.4 million. Then it shows the expenses, which over 5 years for the municipal model would total $5.7 million. So there's definitely lots of expense there, but it's offset by those revenues. So if you subtract the 4.4 million from the 5.7 in cost, you end up with a municipal cost to the taxpayer of $1.3 million. Now, compare that to the $2.5 million that the rescue proposal would cost the town, and you find that the difference is $1.2 million over 5 years. So it would cost the town taxpayers $1.2 million more dollars to go with the rescue proposal than to go with the municipal option. Now, I was relating that to the ARPA issue, because if you think about ARPA as an investment that we're making, we actually end up paying that back. There's a return on investment of that over that 5-year period that you make up because you invest that up front. You then make that up every year a little bit until after 5 years, it's moot. Basically, that money was a good investment and you had a nice return. The bonus is that goes on forever, for additional years after that, where the town will continue to see a savings over the best alternative, which is the rescue proposal.
Great.
Is that?
Yes, that does help. Thank you. Okay. Other board members? My only other question is back to Chief Howard. Yeah, so quality of care is the thing that matters the most to me on all of this. You have an opportunity right now to tell the select board if you don't feel like the fire department would be ready for this come FY '24 July 1st. We have other options, and the select board can take those options. If you felt that way, I would want you to voice that now. If you felt that that was not something that you feel confident in.
As I stated a few minutes ago, I wouldn't be sitting here telling you to do this if I didn't feel that we were capable of doing it and we'll be ready to do it. And again, over the last 14 months, we've been under scrutiny by medical control, Dr. Storn, and to me, it's news to me tonight to learn that our services are as bad as an individual said they were, and I don't feel that I feel we've been providing a quality care, and we've had a doctor oversight saying that we have done so.
Thank you, Chief. Other board members?
Let's vote.
Yeah, okay, so thank you. So in that case, I'm just going to, there's been a motion board from Liz. The motion was, the first motion was to select the fully municipal approach as the preferred model for EMS service delivery in Brattleboro, effective in FY '24 on July 1st, 2024. All those board members in favor, please indicate with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that's going to pass 5-0. Thank you very much, both to the board and to the public for all of your participation, and to town staff for all the work on that. So we're going to move forward to agenda item 8A2, which is the EMS request for proposals addressing the next steps. And I'm going to, so basically we need to now move to the next phase here, which is addressing what happens now that we've chosen a model. And so John's going to walk us through what that looks like.
Yep, and it's pretty simple. Staff are recommending that the town reject both proposals that were received through the EMS RFP process. In the RFP, the town clearly stated that it reserves the right to reject any or all proposals as may be in the best interests of the town. We would urge you to find that it's in the best interests of the town at this point, since you've chosen a different model of EMS service delivery, to reject those two proposals. The staff appreciate the efforts that went into developing those proposals and would acknowledge and thank the proposers for their consideration.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Yes, Peter.
To direct the staff to reject all proposals from the EMS request for proposals.
Great. Thank you very much, Peter. Board, discussion, questions? Franz?
When I first read this motion, I didn't like the word reject because it seems to imply a level of disrespect to the proposals that we received. I've been told that that is the standard legal wording for dealing with a request for proposals, that you have to officially say, no, we're not going this way, and that the wording that's used is to reject the proposal. So I still don't like the connotation perhaps, but I've become settled on the fact that that's what the wording has to be, and so that's what we're going to do now.
Great. Thank you, Franz. Other board members? Seeing none, for questions from the public? I don't think that's a hand, no. Okay. In that case, board, there is a motion to from Peter to direct staff to reject all proposals from the EMS request for proposals. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's going to carry 5-0. And then we're going to move on to agenda item A3, which is the preferred alternative implementation. So now that the board has decided on a model, we need to discuss what the next steps are for implementation. And I'm going to pass it over again to John to speak to what the town staff's proposal is for that next step implementation.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. So the staff requests that the select board proceed with an implementation plan that authorizes the use of up to $1.375 million in ARPA funding of the 1.7 million that you set aside before you got feedback for the municipal EMS startup expenses, as shown on Table 2 of the board's backup materials. And if you look at that Table 2, you can see what the proposal is to spend that funding on. The first is hiring an EMS supervisor. That would be one of the first tasks. I'll talk about that in a minute. And carrying them for 8 months until the start of fiscal '25. Also would be hiring the other firefighter EMTs for a total of 21 months. They would be hired on a staggered basis from now until July 1st. Well, I forget when the last month was that we were hiring there, but that would be for a total of $154,713 to have them up and ready to go on July 1st. The replacement revenue was discussed earlier. That's a 3 months replacement at $250,000. A startup consultant to help advise the staff on policies that we would bring back to the board for consideration, $20,000. Mobile radios, $29,250. Those need to be purchased, as do portable radios at $49,000. Turnout gear for the new staff for $56,000. The 3 ambulances, which I'll talk about in there is quite a bit of detail on what the ambulances are, and I'm going to turn to Chief Howard at appropriate time if the board wants to hear more about that, but I will just say at the moment that the proposal is to spend $666,100 on acquiring 3 ambulances, and we also put a contingency of 5% in there at $65,488 in case there's things that we don't realize that we needed that would need to be done before July 1st. So that's a total of $1.375253 for the startup costs. This will allow $375,000 of previously set aside ARPA funding to be freed up for other uses to be determined through the FY25 budget process, which is including an engagement process and getting feedback and ideas from the public. First off, on September 28th at the budget open house. So we hope people will come and make suggestions about that ARPA funding at that open house. Staff recommends that the town accept the quote from GEV of Levittown, Pennsylvania for the ambulances, which the chief is prepared to discuss at length if you wish. And staff further recommends that the Human Resources Department start by creating a job description for the EMS supervisor position and begin that hiring process immediately, with the hope that the right person could be brought on board by November. Additional firefighters will be hired over the first 6 months of 2024. Staff would plan to return to the Select Board over the next several months with regular updates on how this is going, how the implementation is going, and also with options and a recommendation for a billing and collections policy. Staff will also return and recommend a mutual aid policy related specifically to EMS services. Finally, it will use the implementation plan and the results of these subsequent policy discussions to develop a draft fiscal '25 general fund budget.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you very much, John. Board members, do we want to? I would like to hear from Chief Howard regarding the ambulances. Sure. With some more detail. Specifically, these are type 1. So to go back to talking about ambulances, which we did a while ago, there's 3 types: type 1, type 2, type 3. Type 1 was definitely the one that most EMS providers have. Some have different ones. And then so why are we looking at type 1? And then the other element is it looks like the truck is new, but the box and the power load cot system are refurbished. So can you speak to why are we looking at that instead of a fully new one? And what is the impact on the equipment replacement for those refurbished pieces of it? And are we considering that when which one was it? Pennsylvania, the global emergency vehicles for Levittown, Pennsylvania.
So what we have proposed is we'll purchase 2 Type 1 ambulances. Type 1s is a pickup chassis with a box on it. And the third one will be a Type 3 ambulance, which is a van type chassis with the same kind of box as the Type 1 has on it. And the reason we suggest those and you see them through fire-based EMS is because it allows the space for us to, these folks to store their fire gear in it. So when they do go on an EMS call and they have the capability of performing all duties. Now, the reason we chose this type of, going with this type of purchase of an ambulance is, as the previous 2 chiefs spoke a couple weeks ago, if you're to order a new ambulance today, you're lucky to see it in 2 to 3 years because of supply chain issues. So the ambulances that we're looking at are, the chassis are brand new. They come with a Ford factory warranty, bumper to bumper. The boxes are really completely refurbished. The electrical wiring is completely redone. The flooring is done. The upholstery in the back is all done. Cabinets are fixed or replaced as needed. There's a 5-year warranty, unlimited warranty on the electrical. There's a 5-year warranty on the emergency light package. With that, it says in the bids that we received, I believe it's 270, 280 days for delivery, which is going to put us close to when we start or a little before. So that's why I'm recommending that purchase. And as Assistant Town Manager Moreland has, he's made up a capital plan replacement, and it's my assumption that the capital plan will replace those 2 Type 1 ambulances first. The Type 3 ambulance, which will be our ambulance for 2% of the calls, I see us having that for a very long lifespan because of the amount of use that it'll get used. The other 2 units will see continuous use.
Great, thank you very much, Chief. Other board members? Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped right into it and I should have done a motion. I apologize, I got excited.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I move to direct staff to proceed with the implementation plan to establish the preferred model as presented.
Great, thank you very much.
Can I speak to it?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Chief Howard, for kind of speaking to the refurbishment. I knew going into today that, like, if I chose to go with the municipal approach, it was likely I would also end up choosing to kind of, concur with your implementation plan. And the refurbished box was something that was talked about a little bit when we talked about startup costs. The original startup cost presentation had a description of 3 different kinds of ambulances, truck 1, van 1, regular old van 1. And we set aside $600,000 at the time, with that keyed to 3 van type ambulances, which, is in use in our community, but is not the preferred ambulance type. We did hear from the fire union that they would have a preference for the Type 1 ambulance. I even heard from a provider the other day that, like, having more room on the back with the box is better for, patient care. And the van is a little tight. And so it's clear to me that, like, we couldn't order 3 brand new Type 1 ambulances, completely brand new, and get them in time for July 1. And I think we kind of talked about that a little bit in the summer, but I think this might surprise some people. And so I think it's important that they understand why this is a reasonable option. So the pickup truck, it's like a 450, F450?
F450, yeah.
Yeah, so pretty serious truck. And it seems like the refurbishing of the box is pretty extensive. And I'm glad to hear that there's warranties. So I guess I just want to kind of say for the public, that, like, I had misgivings at first hearing about this because, typically when I've sat here, we've ordered new vehicles all the time, although I did learn we once got you something that was gently used, I think. And so I want the public to feel confident that that equipment will do the job well. I suppose I am kind of curious if the firefighters union has an opinion about it. If that's okay with the chair. Sorry, I forgot my role.
Well, if you're willing to be interrogated for a moment.
Hi, I'm Jamal Cunningham, president of the local 4439 Firefighters Union. As far as the refurbishment, Chief Howard was gracious enough that I've been able to sit with him through the process. We've talked about the process of new ambulances. We've talked about the process of refurbished ambulances. We've weighed the pros and cons. I think the pros greatly outweigh the cons with the model that the administration has put forth. I think the availability is extremely important. It gives us time to be familiar with the equipment. And I think that even having 2 Type 1 ambulances and having a van as our ambulance that's used 2% of the time, as we said, that van will be gently used, like the chief said. I also would think that the Type 1 ambulances provide us with, you said it's a pretty sturdy truck as an F-450. We do deal with inclement weather conditions here often. So those having 2 brand new chassis and brand new trucks, those are fully capable of dealing with a Vermont winter. So we feel strongly about that. And we have the utmost confidence in what the chief has recommended. And we've been consulted on the process all the way through, and we feel good about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Ian?
Yes, Franz.
I really just want to say that if there were brand new Type 1 ambulances available within a reasonable time frame, I would still be advocating for this proposal because I think these absolutely meet the need, and I think the savings is considerable. When we did first hear over the summer about this as a possibility, I immediately latched onto that as, wow, that would be my preferred approach to providing the vehicles. So I fully support going ahead with this.
Great. Thank you, Franz. Other board members? So for me, the other thing is I would like to modify, and I'll look to the select board, I'd like to modify the EMS update moving forward to incorporate updating the select board and the town on this implementation process. So, Yep. So it's not really clear in the memorandum exactly how often we would be being updated. I would say let's be updated every month. Okay. And so, and we can continue to hear how EMS is going with Golden Cross and have that element of the update, but then incorporated in it is also how are these implementation steps going. So that'll include hiring, equipment, acquiring. We'll probably need to sort of modify it as we go, just like we've done with the EMS update. But I think that that's the best way to ensure that we're all on the same page as we move through the process. Franz.
Well, I'll tell my Joni Mitchell story.
Okay.
Sometime in the 80s or 90s, Joni Mitchell released an album of songs by Charles Mingus, the great jazz bass player. And it was considered really a radical step that she would do that, and one that perhaps had little commercial potential. So I think it was Columbia Records, but their top brass put out a memo to their public relations staff that said, we're going to have a contest for promoting this album. And in this contest, first prize is you get to keep your job. So I think we're kind of in that position here. We need to make this work. No substitute for success in this endeavor. So as we're going forward, I think hearing once a month is great. I think all of us need to have very close tabs on the progress that's being made and are accountable to the town and its people for the success of this program. Thank you.
Agreed. Yes, Liz.
Thank you, Franz. I'm glad you didn't bring up both sides now.
We could do a chorus if you want.
Other board members, and then I'm going to turn it over to the public. Peter.
Yeah, I agree with the monthly thing, but I'd also like to tell my Mickey Mantle story.
Dude, go.
Okay. So, and I think I've got head nods across the board on that for the monthly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great.
We'll understand that as incorporated into the implementation.
Excellent. Good. Okay, I have a hand. It's not Sylvia. It's, I can't remember who it was. That was not the person though, right?
We don't know. We'll find out.
Hello, Sylvia. Can you hear us? Oh, it is.
It was something that I wanted to get in on the last discussion that you had, but it's kind of like maybe an endpoint to the whole rescue, fire department, et cetera, discussion that you had and decision you made. One thing that I would hope and pray that in the future, in your new endeavors, and even from now until your new endeavors with Golden Cross or whoever you have between now and then, that you would set up some system for performance evaluations or performance reviews. The thing that frustrates me the most and makes me the most upset is that if something is going wrong with a system and you're not ever auditing the system or checking it, but just taking some anecdotal information from someone that everything's going good, that's not okay. In any kind of business, you got to really know what's going on, not just take the word for somebody. Oh yeah, it's going good, no problem. And as you know, I sent you a memo last year. I had a very traumatic experience, and I won't go into detail on it. It was an EMS experience with your current EMS provider. And if there had been, even when I reported this, and there was another person that I talked to, and he had a very similar traumatic experience. And we wondered how many other people had had these experiences. And I please beg you to, somewhere along the way, check with people that use the services that you have to make sure that you are getting what you're paying for and that the residents of Brattleboro are getting what they deserve. And you have now made it because of your decision, and I won't go either way with it. I will just say that because of your decision, I no longer can call rescue. I cannot get rescue to come to my home. And they're the only ones that I want to come to my home if anything happens to me. So it's very sad for me, and there's nothing I can do about it except to implore you. And I have talked to Dr. Storm, and I've talked to Will Moran and all the heads of the EMS directors in the state and whatever. And nobody got back to me, including you, and told me that you had a system in place where you would know if that happened again. And I would not have to, I or someone else would not have to report it to you to let you know that something was wrong. You'll have no idea how traumatic that experience was. And actually, it could have almost been a lawsuit because medically I was not handled correctly. And so I just want you to say, I love Brattleboro. I've been here for most of my life, and I don't want to create anything. I just want to make sure that you keep Brattleboro as safe and secure as you can with your powers. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, Sylvia. Can we speak to quality control that we've had currently, what we're looking at in the future, and then I'll speak a little bit to just like you're operating like a system and keeping track of that. But if we could hear from Fire first.
So first, we take all of complaints that come into our office very seriously, both whether they're not internally and or externally from our own staff, having concerns about other staff, to external complaints into our office. In such a case, in terms of, we've discussed it a little bit in these meetings, but when we get a complaint, the first thing we do is review the incident through QA, QI. We make sure any breach of protocol is reviewed or all protocols are reviewed. That process involves Dr. Storn, and then in this particular case, it involves myself and a representative from Golden Cross to make sure that both priorities are represented correctly. If there's errors found, they're reviewed in detail with those providers. If corrections are needed, those corrections are issued, whether that be disciplinary action or other. And if there is disciplinary action, we involve Director Nix involved with that process. So they're taken very seriously. There's a process in place to make sure that each and every complaint is received and taken seriously.
Great. Thank you very much, AC. Yes.
And that's complaints that come in, but you have your own review process that perhaps you'd like to explain.
Sure. We have, it's a whole protocol process, and I'm probably going to explain it. I'm going to miss parts of it, but we have protocols in place to make sure that when providers, before they go out in the ambulance, meet certain standards, and they have to be precepted for, I don't remember the exact number of calls, and forgive me, but they need to be precepted for X amount of calls before they can be out on their own doing clinical practice. And then from there, that's reviewed regularly with the shift officer. Shift officers review incident reports on at the conclusion of every single day. And then they may flag certain things that trigger their interest to say, hey, I need more follow-up on this, or what happened here. Along with the day-to-day activity, the shift officers will routinely go into question, how did that call go? Were there things that we could have done better? What went wrong? What went good? So that's a regular process that happens not only on EMS calls, but for fire calls and every call that we deal with.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thanks. That's helpful to hear, and I certainly have seen that, complaints to any town department get handled with seriousness. And I think what I also heard Sylvia speak to was like some way of monitoring kind of quality that isn't just complaint driven. And, I think your question was kind of getting at, like, Dr. Stone does a review of certain kinds of cases regardless of whether there are complaints about them or not, right? That's from like a medical director point of view. But I think there's also like a customer satisfaction kind of angle to this as well. And that it's important that we have some mechanism for folks to let us know how we did that day. Were they treated well? Did they feel safe? Did they feel comfortable? Obviously, in some cases, people are not going to be in a position to really know that. But for the folks like Sylvia, who sounds like maybe she didn't quite feel as good about it as she would have liked to, I don't know, I'm thinking like those kinds of like QR codes that people can use, or like some very simple mechanism, smiley faces, that kind of thing, so that we can have metrics on like how happy people are. I don't know if the police department ever thinks about this kind of thing as well, or Public Works.
So what I'm hearing, and I think it's an excellent point, is as part of the implementation process, can we also hear what we are exploring as other quality assurance mechanisms now that we're going to be taking on a full Fire-EMS model that it doesn't involve a third party at all? And, keeping us updated on like what that looks like, talking to other providers and how they do it. It may look very similar to what is currently happening, but because we haven't moved in this model before, I think it's really worth exploring.
I just call it patient feedback.
Yeah.
Is that
we should make it easy for patience to give us feedback.
And we have
Right.
many months to explore that.
Yes.
To discuss and ensure that.
We also have an opportunity to trial in partnership.
Nice new website coming out. for
That's
the
right.
town, and that's something that we can add to the fire department's.
Maybe when a bill goes to somebody, there's a very easy way to provide feedback as well.
Yeah.
As well as sending a
I
check.
see Bob and
So I really wasn't going to speak to this. Bob Ozer, Brattleboro, but since you're on the topic. So I was looking through some of the EMS feedback, and I read a letter, and it had an implication that there was a medical situation that the person was describing that was not to their satisfaction. So I happened to meet with a select board member on just an inadvertent meeting and said, not for nothing, but, the person got the response through feedback, which is, your letter is very important to us and will be filed and the select board will read it and that response memo. And so I talked to the select board member and I said, not for nothing, but I really think that this person had some medical situation, and maybe they should have gotten a more substantive response, and I didn't want to reach out to the person, but, circumstances are that it's kind of a small town, and then, so I did reach out to the person, and I just said, what I just said to you. And the person wrote back and said, never heard back from any of them, really insulting. And so I didn't want to say that, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. But because we had this discussion, I think you should know that. Nice idea to have a good website and all the rest of it. I just had an issue with another corporate entity where I got the answer back. They didn't read the memo. They just thought that anybody who writes in would actually opt out of Section G or whatever it was. So they didn't actually read the memo. So when you get a memo, you actually have to read it and then respond to it. And maybe, I don't know about the smiley face, so I'll hold off on that.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Sylvia, I see your hand is up again. Want to briefly, an additional comment?
Just a quick comment, Dan, you're absolutely right. What is needed is some kind of customer feedback. And the hospital does that now. I get surveys from the hospital and they ask how my doctor visit went. Did I have to wait long in the office to see the doctor, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure some of you have also received those. That's the kind of thing I mean. It can be anonymous. It can be whatever. But at least it gives you some confidence that you know what's going on in your backyard. And otherwise, you're just going with, like I said, anecdotal and whatever's said on the street, and that's not okay. So I really would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sylvia. Other?
Let's vote.
Yep. Okay, other board members?
Actually, I do have something.
Yes, Daniel.
Different kind of topic. So this is expending $1.35 million of ARPA money. And town meeting did indeed make that motion. I checked the minutes and you read it perfectly. I have spoken with the finance committee. Well, I've spoken with Paula Melton from the finance committee, and I know that Paula wrote us a really great memo about public process and ARPA and that kind of thing. And so I just want to get a commitment, I guess, from the rest of the board that we will do our utmost and the town staff will do their utmost to make sure that our ARPA process from here on out is astoundingly good. And, we have a little bit of time, right? Like to obligate. Remind me what the deadline is for obligation is next.
The end of 2024.
Right. So, there's time to develop a good process. I know that, John, I think you said you wanted to kind of have it as part of the budget process. But I want to make sure that we don't miss the opportunity to do a good job with that ARPA money, because I know, this is not what people had in mind, or it necessarily.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. Franz?
So since we're talking about ARPA money and town meeting, I want to raise the possibility that if town meeting feels that it was inappropriate to spend ARPA money on ambulances, then there could be a process by which the money is restored to the ARPA fund. Would likely require bonding to make that financial move. But as far as I'm concerned, that's on the table as something that we can look towards if people in the town or, representative town meeting members or however it comes about. I'm not advocating that we do that, but I think it's a reasonable thing to talk about, and there would be ample opportunity to talk about that during the budget process of how people want to see that amount of money actually allocated. So I just put that on the table as something that is possible during the coming months where we're reviewing the budget.
Ian?
Liz?
While we're putting that on the table, I just want to mention that there's no way we could borrow money and pay it back in 5 years the way that our town manager has laid out for us.
And, okay, any other board members on that? And I see Dr. Tortolani, and I just want to also mention that the vote of the select board to put the set aside for the 1.75 million of town ARPA money in consideration of EMS was prior to RTM. March 21st. And so we have been clear and have talked about ARPA all the way through this discussion. And so I really believe that part of the consideration for EMS has included the discussion about ARPA. And I understand if people disagree with that, but that is an element of this. And Franz's point is heard, but I do fully commit to Daniel's point on the process moving forward.
Astoundingly good.
Astoundingly good. Yes, Dr. Tortolani.
I think I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you see me? I can't see myself.
We can't
No,
see
we
you.
can't see you.
Oh, video feed.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, here, hold on. I'm sorry.
and we actually, Dr. Tortolani, do you mind just holding on a second? Because it looks like we lost video feed for Brattleboro as well for us.
Did we stop the video by any chance?
Let's see.
What did we lose?
Oh, now we see.
We're not visible.
Well, maybe you won't be able to see me. Hold on.
Well, it doesn't matter for right now.
I
We're happy
understand.
to see you, but we'll figure out the other issue.
No
Go ahead,
worries.
Doc.
First of all, I just want to thank all the select board members for all the work they're doing on this. I know this has been very difficult for everybody. I just wanted to speak to Heidi's testimony. And as we go forward and the quality issues that you just were talking about, and I just wanted to make sure that if as you go forward, there are any concerns on the part of any emergency department staff on the way a patient's clinical situation was handled, that feedback goes back to the medical director of the EMS, such that things can be, educational process can occur and that things can be as good as possible as we go forward. We shouldn't miss the opportunities to be as good as we can be at any moment. I'm sure this is happening, but I think this is a very important situation. I was concerned by Heidi's testimony, and that there's an opportunity there. If there are some issues that on the receiving end in the emergency department, any of the healthcare professionals that interact with the EMT personnel see some issues there, that information should get back to the medical director, such that adequate training can occur and things can be better the next time. That's all the thing I wanted to say. And again, I want to thank you all for the work you're doing and for the work you'll have ahead. I like the idea of a monthly reckoning and with what happens as you go forward, and appreciate all you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Totally echo those points, and I think they reflect what we've been talking about as far as oversight and hearing from people on how the system is operating once we are underway. Other board members? Yep, okay. Thank you. So we've got a motion to direct staff to proceed with the implementation plan to establish the preferred model as presented and as modified a bit in our discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's going to carry 5-0. Okay, so that's going to complete the first agenda item. And we're going to move on to new business agenda item B, which is the Fire-EMS just EMS update. So I will turn to AC Kier.
I will do my best to keep it brief but thorough. So thank you. It does give me an opportunity to kind of talk about our staff and some of the good things that they're doing. So, and in part of that, in the August EMS update, we had 9 members of our staff attend pediatric education for pre-hospital professionals. This is directly dealing with very high acuity, ill and injured pediatric calls. So that's a pretty difficult course. We have 3 members that are already trained in that area, so now we have a total of 12. So I commend our staff for taking that time to do that program. During the month of June, the Brattleboro Fire Department responded to 368 calls of service. Of those 368, 303 calls required a response with an ambulance. In more detail, 266 rescue emergency medical service calls, 36 false alarms, 20 good intent calls, 38 service calls, 4 hazardous conditions, 1 special type of incident, and 3 fire calls. You guys directed me to ask a series of questions that I thought were pertinent to an EMS for the EMS report and data collection to Golden Cross Ambulance. Chief Howard and I met with Dale and boiled down, our conversation really kind of boiled down to 4 questions that we had him reduce to writing just for clarity. And the words that you see here are really kind of cut and pasted from an email from Dale. Do we keep track of unpaid invoices? Yes, we do monitor the unpaid invoices generally after approximately 6 months. From the date of the call, you will only receive a small percentage of that collectible. We generally wait until 1 year mark to write them off the books. Part B of that, as an S corporation, our financials are set from a calendar year. How do you track revenues? We run reports on initial payers and current payers. Initial payers would be the information we received at the time of transportation and who billed for the service. Current payers may either be on updated payers, i.e. initially, or private payer after some research was found as a patient has Vermont Medicare, so that they would move to a current payer. Number 3, we talked about earlier. How do you consider write-offs and contractual allowances? A contractual allowance is the amount above the allowed amount a payer will provide for the service. If you participate in federal programs, i.e. Medicare, you would be required to accept the allowable amount. You will adjust that payment balance to show the allowed amount on the account receivable. Write-off is the amount we do not believe we will receive. This will be the amount of the unpaid balance remaining on the books after a year. Collection rates as of June 30th, 2023. June 30th, 2023. Thank you, Chief. Golden Cross collection rate, total payments, charges, and a gross collection rate of 67%. A net collection rate, payments, charges, minus contractual allowances, net collections was a rate of 81%. Some of the current data statistics pulled from July 1 to August 31st, 2023. This fiscal year, we've run a total of 572 calls The average EMS calls, the average time of call was 24 minutes and 59 seconds. The need for 2 ambulances was 102. The need for 3 ambulances was 10. The need for mutual aid was 2. We transported 360 patients. The average response time was 4 minutes and 29 seconds. The 80th percentile was 6 minutes and 51. The 90th percentile was 8 minutes and 4 seconds. The 90th percentile emergent response was 6 minutes and 51 seconds. Golden Cross invoice $169,466.80. They received credits of $149,245,023 with write-offs of $16,221.08. The write-offs is a new addition to the EMS report and will be added along the way. Invoicing data collected from July 1st, 2022. So overall, Golden Cross has invoiced $1,171,174 with the credits of $777,090.57. That concludes my EMS report for August.
Thank you very much, AC Kier. Can I get a motion?
I move to accept the EMS report as presented.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Board members, additional questions or comments? We had a little bit of discussion on this during the other agenda item, but is there anything else? Franz?
Oh, I was voting in favor of the motion. Sorry.
Oh, okay. In that case, well, I was just going to say, I think the only other thing would be if there is information that we should be asking Golden Cross moving forward now that we have a direction and a model, I would encourage that information to be presented in the EMS update as well.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if there are particular things or not. And maybe that will come as we discuss it.
There will most certainly be conversations with Golden Cross as we move forward.
Okay. Okay, in that case, board members, unless there's any other one from the public? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's going to carry 5-0, so it passes. Thank you. And then in that case, I believe we just have one more motion.
A motion to adjourn.
Peter's made a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's going to carry 5-0. Thank you very much to BCTV. Thank you to our interpreters. Thank you to everyone who came out tonight for this discussion. Thank you very much, Chief Howard and AC Kier.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ian.